What is up, Longhorn fans? Welcome to another Texas Sports Unfiltered Longhorn football pregame show. No, I am not Brad Kellner. Brad Kellner is maybe floating a river in or around New Braunfels right now. Terrible decision by the bachelor party that he is a part of if they decided to get out in the water today. But I am happy to be filling in for BK alongside a voice that you are used to hearing on pregame shows. That would be my good friend Bucky Godbolt as we get you ready for the Longhorns matchup with the TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. It is a 6:30 kickoff. And Buck, it is a game that feels a little bit less stressful now that we found out a couple of days ago that Quinn Ewers will be starting this game for the Longhorns.
There's no doubt about it, Trey. It's a good day to be a Longhorn fan. I know there was a lot of angst going into this game for a lot of Longhorn fans, and whether Malik Murphy going into his third start would be able to handle this on the road game against a team that's kind of dominated Texas over the last couple of years. So this is a great opportunity for this team to really get back in the swing of things. By the way, Malik Murphy is 2-0 as a starter, so he's done what he needed to do. He needed to win the games and be a part of a winning team, and he did for 2 games. But now I think there's just a little bit less stress on the football team itself with Quinn Ewers coming back, playing a TCU team that's got a lot of defectors to the NFL, not defectors that they don't play the game of football anymore, but a lot of guys that are going on to brighter futures and playing in the NFL. They've got 11 to 12 players that are on NFL rosters and are active and playing in the NFL right now. They lose an awful lot. And it's been hard for this group from Fort Worth to come back. The backups haven't done quite the job that they were expecting. They had a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. They had 2 running backs that are playing in the NFL. They had the Thorpe Award winner in the secondary. They had one of the best defensive linemen in the Big 12, one of the tops in the country, one of the best linebackers in the country last year. It's hard to replace that many guys. You can talk about having depth but if you lose 11 guys to the NFL, you're going to have a problem the next year.
No doubt about that. And even though they did have good individuals on the defense last year, the defense wasn't great. They were opportunistic.
Mm-hmm.
They were good at forcing turnovers, but it really was about that high-powered offense. And now the offense, even though they have had some decent games throwing the football this year, they've been a shell of themselves. And on top of that, they've been starting a backup for the better part of the last month with Chandler Morris missing extended time, I believe, with a knee injury. He is not going to play today. So it is the redshirt freshman Josh Hoover that will be in for TCU. And considering just how difficult this Texas defense, really this Texas front, has made life on opposing quarterbacks throughout much of the year, especially backup quarterbacks thrust into that position, I am expecting, while Josh Hoover may find some success at times, he does have couple of games of going over 300 yards passing. He also has a turnover in pretty much every game that he has played so far this year too. So I expect the Texas defense to force him into some unfortunate mistakes for the TCU side that turns into flipped fields for the Longhorn offense.
Well, when you talked about Quinn Ewers returning as the starter, now expectations are there won't be a lot of turnovers from the Texas Longhorns. With Malik Murphy, we were averaging a good 2 or 3, which could have been 5 or 6. And last week could have been 5 interceptions last week pretty easily. But I wouldn't expect that from a veteran quarterback. I know he's been banged up, but he's coming back. But he understands enough when to get rid of the ball, when the tight windows are there, how to throw it away, when to run with the football. A little bit of everything from this guy, depending on how his health is going to be. Now, we've heard he's practiced all week. So for Sark, if he's ready to play, you got to play him. And I don't think you'd put a player in there unless he was 80% or above. And plus, it sounds like it's a pain tolerance thing right about now anyway. It's not so much the injury itself, but pain tolerance.
So let's go ahead and play some Steve Sarkisian cuts. This is going to be from his Thursday Zoom media session where he did make the announcement. This is going to be cut number 4, Brock, where Sark let everybody know that Quinn will be the starter for tonight's game.
Biggest thing to note now, Quinn's going to start Saturday night, and we're obviously as a team excited about that. He's had a great week of practice. I feel very comfortable with his ability to operate the offense. I think his family, our medical team feel very good about where he's at health-wise. And so we're looking forward to having him back. I think we're very fortunate that Malik got those 2 starts under his belt. And so knowing in the future, if something, Quinn wasn't able to go, that we've got a really quality backup that's won 2 ball games for us, one of which against a top 25 team, a really good defense. So we're fortunate in the position that we're in. But it'd be great to have number 3 back out there Saturday night. The biggest thing of note now, Quinn's going to start Saturday night, and
I think it was key that he said that Quinn and his family were felt good about him starting this weekend's game, because if you go back to his comments from Monday, he basically put the ball in Quinn Ewers' court and said, look, medically he looks like he's all right now, but there's a comfort factor that comes into play. And Quinn Ewers not only has to think about the possibility of re-injury, because this is an injury that you can reset yourself to square one in that recovery if you're not careful. End up in surgery, and also end up jeopardizing the possible pro prospects that he has right now too. So there is a lot bouncing around his head, bouncing around his family's head. But ultimately, Quinn is a competitor. He wants to get back out there for this football team, loves his teammates love him, and sure enough, here we are. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him sit out one more week, but I think he knew deep down that the sooner he could get out there, the better, especially because, well, you do have a little bit more trust in Malik Murphy going forward because he did get those 2 starts. He was shaky in 2 home games. You're going to talk about a raucous road atmosphere tonight. It's a sold-out stadium in Fort Worth. There will be some Longhorn fans there. There's going to be a lot of TCU fans screaming their heads off too. Some of those later in the game mistakes that were being made last week, those are happening earlier in the game with a younger quarterback. That turns into a snowball effect that could be difficult for a Texas team that has the better roster to overcome. Now it's not going to be a concern, though, with Quinn Ewers in there.
Yeah, it's, when things happen like this, and Sark says it's good that we got him some experience, I would prefer that they start getting guys experience early in the schedule when you're beating teams like Rice or Wyoming, BYU. When you have opportunities to beat teams, then why not put those guys in and give them the experience early in the season? When you get them in there in the middle of the season and you're in a dogfight to try to get to a Big 12 championship, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. It really, really does. Now, I'm not saying that if he's in a game, if he's in a game when you're winning and you're winning the game and you're trying to get a quarter out of him and seeing what it's like, whether it's Arch Manning or Malik Murphy, it's better than me. I feel like it's better early in the season than at this time. I mean, this was because of an injury. That dude wasn't even going to play. He wouldn't have played because Sark plays guys till the very end. I mean, so they just start spitting up blood. I mean, he just leaves them in. I mean, you saw that in the beginning of this season when Quinn Ewers was playing, when there were blowout games, and he still left them in. You were wondering, why not get these other guys in here? Let them play some games. So if you have to use them like you've had to do, then you don't have to worry about a guy throwing it to other guys, He's in the opposite jersey.
Yeah, he's entirely too sensitive, it feels like, to his quarterback's egos, like trying really hard to avoid shattering those egos. But if they're natural born leaders and they were to get benched or whatever, then they can grow from that. But in a situation like what you're talking about, where it's a blowout, yeah, get some other guys experience. Arch Manning should have been in there in the BYU game a few weeks ago. Sure. I'm sorry he should have. I know that you are being mindful of making sure that he still has that red shirt at the end of this year. There were no guarantees that he was going to have the opportunity to get in any other game this year, especially with the possibility of Quinn Ewers coming back. But here he sits now, still not having a single college snap to his resume, and you are well past the point of him being able to play every game going forward and still being able to maintain that red shirt too. It's almost like he takes those moments for granted because he's too focused on the big picture at times.
I mean, is it that they don't understand that 80% of the quarterbacks that say they're coming to your university that come are gone within 2 years? It's like that's just the way it is all over college football. So why not see what you have until you're going to wait till they're juniors to find out what they're all about? I think it's important to get guys in early. I think especially when it's non-conference play, you know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a blowout. You can be up by 2 touchdowns. Let them get in a series or 2. Let them understand what the game is about. I think that hurt Malik Murphy a lot to be thrown in, because this was pressure. When he got in, it was about we can't afford to lose a game with you in here. You need to understand this. It's not about you getting in here and performing. We're putting pressure under you right now because of the fact that we can't lose with you playing quarterback. You're not going in here for a series. you're the quarterback. Now, if I'd had a couple snaps, the first 2 games of the season, I think I would have felt better. As a player, I would have felt a lot better. And hell, as a coach, as his coach, I would have felt a lot better too if I would have seen him early in the season. Maybe some of those throws that he threw up in there, some of those tight window throws that weren't really, the window was closed and he threw them anyway. And it's just, we're very fortunate that the opposing team can't catch. That's why they're defensive backs, because they can't catch.
Yeah, there were some that were so bad that the defense had no choice but to catch the football, because it was hitting them right in the numbers on a lofted up ball that I don't know if he was trying to throw it to the sidelines. It failed miserably if that was the case. It kind of looked like he was just trying to avoid getting hit. That's, to your point, something that has to be considered when a guy hasn't played significant snaps since going back to high school. He's not used to getting hit. That takes some adjustment. We've seen that with Connor Beck this year at Georgia. He talked about it a couple weeks ago. He was great for them in last week's win over Missouri, even as their run game was sputtering, which is a surprise for a Georgia team that is good annually at running the football. Connor Beck was the star for that offense last week, and he talked about it taking all the way up to this point in the year to feel really comfortable back there, because he went 3 years without getting hit, from the end of his high school career to sitting and waiting his turn at Georgia. That same thing is happening with Malik Murphy right now, which is why it's important to get him some of those reps earlier in the year. I completely agree with you.
It's a lot different at practice, where don't hit the quarterback. That's
exactly.
all you hear all day long. Don't hit the quarterback. Don't go near the quarterback. Defensive player breaks loose from a third string tackle, and he's coming at the quarterback. They're told to veer away, duck your head. And all of a sudden you get in a game, those guys don't veer away.
No.
They just keep coming. And you've got to throw a football. You've got to be careful if your hand is going to hit the helmet. Are they going to hit my arm? It's totally different at practice, because the whole practices are all talk. You can hear people yelling all over the field. Don't hit the quarterback. Don't hit the quarterback. Screw the running back. He runs through the hole. You better pop him pretty good. Those guys get hit all the time. Even when they get thudded up, you can hear the sound of running backs. But when it comes to quarterbacks, you don't let your quarterbacks get hit at any of the practice. Guys don't even go near the quarterback. Guys who could break loose, you've seen it in spring games when they fast whistle it. It's totally different than when you actually get in there in live action in college or any other time.
On that note, with Quinn Ewers back in action tonight, I'd like to think that Steve Sarkisian is going to craft his game plan to give Quinn quick and easy throws, especially early in the game.
You mean like a quick screen, like the first play of the game?
Maybe not a quick screen exactly, although, yeah, I probably do expect that first play of the game. But I want to make sure that Steve Sarkisian is crafting this game plan to minimize the shots that Quinn Ewers is taking. Now, this offensive line has been better at pass blocking than they have run blocking this year. But TCU is going to send the house, not just to put that pressure on Quinn Ewers as he gets back and comfortable with the speed of the game, but also because they want to take some shots on the guy. I don't fault them for doing that. They're going to be looking to take shots on that right shoulder because they know this is his first game back, and there's a good chance that he's probably operating somewhere at 80, 85, maybe 90% right now.
Yeah, and he's going to get I think plenty of opportunities with guys coming at him. This group will play a 3-3-5 defense. Everybody hates it. I don't know. I love it. I'd love to be the running back coach and the offensive line coach to run the ball against those 3 down linemen. And you get a guy like Jonathan Brooks into the next level of the other 3 linebackers. Good luck with that. This is an average to below tackling football team, losing the kind of players that they lost. They don't tackle very well, and that's a bad recipe going against a guy like Jonathan Brooks. It really, really is. If you're not a really solid tackler, he makes really good tacklers look bad. So if you're not good at tackling, I expect for him to have a really, really big time game tonight. This feels
like a good game to maybe ride Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter a little bit more. But we've also been saying that the last 2 weeks now too. And last week, Malik Murphy had something like 37 pass attempts, which equaled the number of carries for both CJ Baxter and Jonathan Brooks combined. I wouldn't mind seeing Quinn Ewers throwing it 20 to 25 times and really riding that running game a little bit more. It's going to be chillier in Fort Worth this evening, which is going to do a decent job of preparing you. It becomes much more difficult to warm up injured body parts, especially your body in general, but especially an injury that you've been nursing up to this point. Now, Quinn's going to be okay throwing the football, supposedly, and that takes us to the next Steve Sarkisian cut. This is going to be cut 5 here, Brock, where Steve Sarkisian was asked, does Quinn Ewers have any limitations going into Saturday night's game with regards to what you need him to do?
You said Quinn has had a good week. Have you noticed, I know on Monday you said it was probably like a pain tolerance thing. Do you see him making all the throws pain-free, so to speak? Is he limited in any way?
No, not limited at all. He looked great to me today.
So sometimes it feels like you can smell the BS that Steve Sarkisian is rolling out there. That sounded a little bit like a BS answer to me. And I don't know if that means that Quinn Ewers doesn't quite have the zip on the ball that he normally does, or he's having a hard time throwing it deep. But I imagine we're going to see him limited in some way, shape, or form tonight. I asked Jeff Howe about that from 3 to 5 yesterday. He said, no, there shouldn't be any limitations. But based on how Steve Sarkisian answered that question, just the flippant nature that he gave that answer, it does seem to me like Quinn is going to be limited in some capacity. I just don't know how.
Well, Quinn will be limited the day after on Sunday morning when his shoulder is on fire after throwing the ball around, because it's going to be sore. It's going to hurt. He's going to have to get treatment again. It depends on, as you said, Trey, how quick can he get loose? You know, this game at 6:30, I mean, it's going to be kind of cool out. You know,
sun's going to be down by then.
The sun will be down. It'll be, you know, under the lights. It's been kind of rainy and misty, not all out rain, but misty and damp. That shoulder will be sore after the first couple throws, because you're going to start throwing that ball at a velocity you haven't even thrown at your practice this week.
Yeah. I
know you were just trying to get through practice and let everybody know, oh, I'm ready to play. But when you get in the game, there's a different velocity the ball has to go again. And you got to understand that thing is going to hurt. And as coaches always say, pain tolerance. Yeah, it's pain tolerance, but now you've got to come back after sitting in at halftime once again, or at the end of a quarter. Every time you stop and the defense is out there, you just got to keep going. I mean, you can't sit over there with your boys and sit back and say, hey, can somebody rub this down? No, you've got to continue to throw. You have to continue to keep movement. You got to continue to keep that warm. And dude, when you get in there at halftime, it doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a long, long time. If you're a quarterback and got a bad shoulder, that's a long time to come back and then try to get warm again. It's almost like, hell, stay on the sideline. Have the offensive coordinator, have Sark stand there with you for a little bit, do all your talking there, but stay out there and throw. Don't even come down and sit. Come in the locker room and sit down. Bring your drinks out there. Do what you have to do. But it will be damp. It will be damp up in Fort Worth tonight. So we'll see. I think we'll know what his velocity is like early in the game anyway. We'll see if that talk, that coach speak that Sark gives you, that, oh, he can do all the throws. We will all notice that on the first couple throws. We'll all know as fans of the game that we've seen what a quarterback can do. If he's airmailing it, if he's short arming it, if he's not zipping it in there, you know that thing is still sore. And he is playing probably at 80%. So, but he's got to play. If he's 80%, he's got to play. You really dodged a couple bullets with Malik Murphy. You really has. He's done a good enough job, but you can't now. You're at a time. You're playing a team that's definitely not afraid of you. They're used to beating you. So it doesn't matter what kind of team they roll out. They always believe this at TCU. We are tougher than Texas. And if we punch them in the face a couple of times, guess what they'll do? They'll roll over. At some point, the kids from TCU, whether it's Gary Patterson or Sonny Dykes, they say to themselves, these guys from Austin, punch them enough times, they'll just start to roll over. They just will. That's the way they feel about them.
There's one area that I want to see Quinn Ewers limited tonight. Can you guess the one area?
Don't tell me running the ball. Let's go, Sayers. Let's go. Take off and go.
You can run the ball if you want to. The area I want to see him limited is initiating contact. Make sure you are sliding. If a guy is within 3 yards of you, slide. There's one situation where you're allowed to try and run through a defender to pick up a first down. That is if it is your final possession of the game and you're losing. And if you don't pick up the first down, the game is over. That's the only situation that you don't slide in. Otherwise,
you're right. And you can be assured that if he's one step from that or one step out of bounds, you better tuck and get down, because they're going to hit him 1 foot out of bounds. They're still going to hit him.
No question. That is a personal foul, well taken on the TCU end. But slide to live to see another play, another drive, another series, another week. When you were, please, for the love of Pete, there was no reason for you to try and run through that Houston defender.
If there's 4 more yards to go, go ahead. Don't do anything but slide. We'll punt. We'll do whatever. But don't take it on thinking you're going to drive a 230-pound linebacker for 4 yards for a first down. No.
If it's 4th and short, you know Sark is going to go for it, and you guys probably aren't going to get it. Just be okay with that.
You're probably not going to get the fourth down because they're going to go option or something wild. Some wild play will come in.
Yeah, that gimmicky, they'll bring a couple defensive linemen in to blow blocking assignments, or Savion Red, that gimmicky package, which isn't working nearly as well now because you've shown it too much. Something.
Yeah, well, I expect him. I expect Quinn Ewers to come out because now he's an experienced quarterback. He understands when to get rid of the ball, how to get rid of the ball. And like you said, Trey, he's going to probably take off and run. I mean, that scares me to death, but I think he's smart enough to understand this is not a contact night for him. He's got to avoid contact. If they've got their backs turned and they've blitzed and you've got the seam and you can run, if you've got the first down, nobody needs the extra 4.
No.
If you know where the marker is and you've got it, there's no reason for you to say, I need to go 30. I've got 30 yards in front of me. No, you can fall down once you get the first down. Who cares?
Exactly. All right, Buck, it's time for our first scoreboard update of the day. It's brought to you by Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. Boy, we have some interesting scores to bring the people, but tell the folks about Moonshine first.
There's 2 great locations in the Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. There's nothing better than brunch at the Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. And they would like to thank you, and as they've celebrating 20 years of service in the Austin area. Now, you've got a Moonshine out by you, I believe.
Yes, we do.
And the one downtown on Red River is fantastic. And they've got it all. They've got everything from trout. They've got fajitas. They've got comfort food for the heart and the soul. And I love going to Moonshine. It's a great place for Sunday brunch. If you're a student over there, mom and pops are going to pick up the tab anyway. Don't just go anywhere on a Sunday. If you're a UT student, or if you're just a student in general, and mom and pop are going to take you somewhere, let them pay for the Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. Why not? You're not paying for it. You're not paying for their meal. They're going to end up paying for yours. So go to a place that serves a wonderful, wonderful brunch. And that's the Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. Love those guys.
That was my gimmick in college.
Is that it?
I assume most UT students and St. Ed students, that's what they do. They have the parents or grandparents take you to Moonshine, pay for the meal. You get to eat for a week's worth of food at that buffet. Brock is behind the cameras right now. He's nodding along as well. He gets the gig.
Yeah, you do.
All right.
Everybody does there for sure.
As far as the scoreboard, we're going to start with games going on right now. Let's go ahead and start with the number 2 team in the Big 12 right now, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. It's a bit of a head scratcher, seeing that Vegas only had Oklahoma State favored by 2.5 points going into UCF today. UCF haven't been very good, but they played a tough Big 12 schedule. They've been close a couple of times, almost tied Oklahoma near the end of regulation a few weeks ago. Well, guess what? UCF is showing folks why Vegas thought this game would be close. Actually, Vegas is way wrong. They should have had UCF favored by multiple scores at halftime. The Golden Knights lead the Cowboys 24-0. Bucky, does anybody other than Texas want to make it to the Big 12 championship game here in a few weeks?
Well, they want to make it, but most of them are going to have 2 or 3 losses to get there.
No doubt about that.
That's what's scary about this, the way this is going to end up. And that's why it's incumbent upon this team to win out, go to the Big 12 championship, win the Big 12 before they head to the SEC, and maybe get a chance to be in that Final Four. Who knows? Anything can happen. Ask Penn State what it felt like today. They took it on the chin, in the back of the neck, in the ear.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. The fighting James Franklin's doing what they always do against good competition, and that is rolling over and croaking. One other Big 12 game going on right now. Kansas State is all over Baylor. This is halfway through the third quarter. Kansas State leading 45-19. Other top 25 games happening right now. We are at a minute left with Arizona driving. They're actually second and goal from the Colorado 3. They're tied with Colorado right now, 31 apiece, but Arizona looks like they have that game in hand to win it at the end. Halftime in Tallahassee, Florida State and Miami tied at 10. Utah, they are not only sticking with Washington, they are leading by 4 points at halftime, 28-24 in Seattle. That Washington defense starting to make you question whether Washington is a true national championship contender. Missouri and Tennessee, number 14 versus 13. The Tigers lead at home right now, 13-7, 13 minutes left in the third quarter. If you had the under 3.5 in the Iowa-Rutgers game at halftime, guess what? you get to cash that ticket in. Iowa leading Rutgers 3-0 right now at halftime. That has to have been one of the worst games of the year to watch through at least the first half. Bucky did mention Michigan and Penn State a little bit earlier. Michigan wins that one 24-15. Game not that close, though. Alabama creams Kentucky 49-21. Kansas, they had a chance to backdoor their way into the Big 12 championship game. Not when you lose to Texas Tech at home, though. Jason Bean, I think, got hurt in that one. Texas Tech wins 16-13. And Tulane, they beat Tulsa 24-22.
Yeah, Bean had a lower leg injury.
Is that what it was? Did it look gruesome too?
Not really.
Okay, good.
No, he's. I mean, I thought he was going to go back in the game, but he did not. They played a true freshman, their third string quarterback. And, he led him up and down the field. He almost they got the ball at the 1-inch line and drove it all the way to the 4-yard line and couldn't get it in to go ahead in that ball game. And for Penn State, Michigan decided that they ran the ball. They were going to run the ball on them, and they ran the ball 30 straight times in the fourth quarter.
Now, I was at a soccer game. Did they really run 30 straight times?
Yes, 30.
Wow.
Hey, here's what you say. We're going to run it, and we're going to run it again and again and again. By the way, we're going to tell you where we're going to run it, and they still ran it over Penn State in that football game. Cheaters.
My goodness. So if Oklahoma State loses today, which I have a hard time believing, they're going to come back from a 24-point deficit at halftime. Even though UCF has been bad this year, Oklahoma State has stunk. Alan Bowman, I saw him throw an interception just before halftime as they were trying to drive down to get any points on the board heading into the locker room. If they lose, they still have a leg up on Kansas State and Oklahoma right now,
Right.
But Iowa State is in that 2-loss category as well. If Iowa State can win this week and find a way to beat Texas next week, they find themselves in the driver's seat because they'll have wins over both Oklahoma State and Texas. Now, I think Texas will beat Iowa State next week. Iowa State's offense is terrible. Quite frankly, if they make it to the Big 12 championship game with as bad as that offense is this year, Matt Campbell, the fighting Matt Campbell's, he probably deserves a raise based on some of the guys.
More money for that guy?
Based on some of the guys that they lost to that gambling scandal in this offseason, just being that bad on offense, but having your defense so good that even in a down year in the Big 12, you're able to make it to the conference championship game. Ultimately, though, I do think we see them fade away when it's all said and done.
By the way, that win over Alabama and Tuscaloosa for the Longhorns looks better and better every weekend. And they just got to fulfill their part of it, with their one loss. They just got to keep on winning. Things will work out. Things will work out for the Horns if they win the rest of the games. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a about as easy a schedule as you could ask for. Now, you could ask for Cincinnati on the schedule. You could maybe ask for UCF too, but TCU, Iowa State on the road, and then Texas Tech at home. Now, Texas Tech has been playing a little bit better recently. I'm still not ready to suggest that the Big 12 needs to be running through Lubbock. It's going to run through Lubbock. It's going to trample all over the Red Raiders in the process. But each of these games holds their own set of challenges, starting with tonight's game. And Buck, as Steve Sarkisian talked about on Thursday, one of the things that TCU has done well so far this year, even though they haven't been great on defense, it's been hit or miss on offense, they have shown the ability to throw the football pretty successfully at times this year, as he talked about in cut 8, Brock.
I think one thing that TCU does with Kendall, and have known Kendall for quite some time, their tempo can cause you issues. If you don't get lined up, they can hurt you regardless of who the receiver is. If you don't guard these people and the ball snap, you get completions. I think the second part is they utilize everybody on the field. Whether it's the 3 receivers, they've got 2 really good tight ends that they get the ball to, and they've got a very good runner. The Bailey kid is a really good player. And so when you're getting deployed and you're trying to guard all the receivers, the runner can hurt you as well. He's got over 900 yards on the year at this point too. So they're a very balanced attack that way. I know we look at the passing numbers, and some of those come, like I said, in games where maybe they've fallen behind and they had to throw it more than they probably would have liked. But they can run the ball, and they can run it very effectively. And so hopefully, we can try to make them a little bit, one-dimensional. And as we said, try to affect the quarterback a little bit and create some turnovers.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the
Spoiler
time.
alert.
Okay, y'all, thank
TCU
you.
is not going to run the ball on Texas tonight. Sonny
No.
Dax had better get that out of his head. Maybe you try and set up the pass off of play action. Don't do what Kansas State did if you want to have a chance in this game and force the run throughout the entire first half, because that isn't going to work for you.
Your chance is throwing the ball against this Texas secondary. You're going to get pressure in your face, but if you can withstand the pressure, because you're going to get hit, they're going to be in your face. But if you can stand in the pocket and throw the ball, your best chance at TCU tonight is throwing on this secondary. The secondary is average at best. I thought by this time of the season it'd be one of the top 10 secondaries in the country. How wrong I was. I mean, I've watched players who have played as starters on this defense still not look like they've gotten any better over the last 2 years. And that's a shame. It really is, because if this secondary was average at best, they'd be pretty good. And Sark will tell you that, oh, well, how are we against the run? Well, we already know that, Coach. There's a lot of things we know. We know nobody runs against you. But when people throw against you, even if they throw in numbers, because smart coaches need to understand they're not going to run against you. And they'll try, because everybody does try to run against Texas, and everybody will try. But they haven't been successful at doing. But they've been successful throwing the ball at your secondary. And they're going to get some. And if they put numbers in there, they'll get enough numbers. Yeah, they'll throw for 300 yards if you let them. If your guys are in trail mode and they're not knocking down passes and guys are catching passes and running with the football. Yeah, it's the scheme. I think the scheme is great, but individual players in that secondary, the young ones are okay, but they're young, and that's to be expected. I expect them to learn the scheme as they go on. But the older ones that have been there, that's what surprises me, I believe.
Yeah, Jaron Thompson, what has happened to them this year is truly bizarre, truly a head scratcher to me. Maybe there's more of a story that we hear after the season is over with, but Texas does get one other member of that secondary back tonight. For how many quarters or how many plays is anybody's guess, but the secondary does get better with Jalen Catalon back at the safety position, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, his leadership alone, and when he's on the field, I think people can feel his presence when he's out there. It's just how long will he be on the field? I mean, that guy's like a missile just waiting to explode somewhere. I mean, if he hits the ground, if he hits his head, hits his shoulder, if he makes contact with guys, there are some guys that have learned how to hit like that. Ed Reed, the All-Pro Hall of Famer, hit like that from the secondary. But he knew how to take care of himself. He didn't have collisions where Ed Reed would miss 5 or 6 games, or he missed a year. Ed Reed was a missile himself. He knew how to attack you. This kid will have to learn this as he goes on, that every hit can't be a big hit, or every big hit can't mean that you're gone.
Look, I mean, his career is over with after this year. I think this is his last year of eligibility. He's not going to be able to stick around in the NFL. To stay in the NFL as a young guy, you not only need to be productive, you also need to be able to stay healthy too. And he's productive when he's out there, but the other part of that equation has been too difficult for him ever since his sophomore year at Arkansas, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it continues on that same path. But they need him. And if you're going to blow somebody out, make sure it's the other guy. Make sure you don't get friendly fire tonight in his way, because when he hits you now, he brings it.
The other thing that I love about this Texas defense is they present a little bit of fool's gold to opposing offensive coordinators, because offensive coordinators are trying to play the numbers game that you just talked about. And they see what looks like a light Texas defensive front where they're maybe committing more to try and stop the pass. And so you're like, look, we have to try this. We have the numbers advantage right now. But unfortunately, the two guys in the middle of that Texas defense may each count as 2 guys.
Yes,
Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, both playing literally, according to Pro Football Focus rankings, the 2 best interior defensive linemen in college football this year. That's really nice to have that on one team. And I asked a couple different people this question this week. I think this is the best 2 interior linemen that Texas has had since Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers. I know we've had some other good duos since then, but in terms of the sheer domination, these guys have gotten it done like Casey and Sean used to.
Well, these guys take up not only space, they take up opposing players. It's not one-on-ones. They destroy the one-on-one. So when they're both in there, you've got to use up a player and a half to block them, just to attempt to run the football, much less what you have to do to throw. You've got to leave your back in at times. You got to make sure the tight end is aware that if whoever's out there on the outside and playing out there at that tackle position, but they own the middle of the field. They own the center and guard, the A gaps. They own that. There's There's nobody who's run against them in the A gaps. And passing wise, they're taking their own offensive linemen and walking them back to the quarterback. Now you'd like to see more sacks, which for the last 2 years we want to see more sacks, but there's been pressure. And when you're playing against a young quarterback, like again tonight, you're playing against a backup quarterback, pressure will mean a lot in his face.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit more about that backup quarterback. Josh Hoover is a redshirt freshman, wasn't supposed to be playing this year, but Chandler Morris has missed a handful of games with what is, I believe, a knee injury. And Steve Sarkisian did talk about Josh Hoover a little bit earlier this week.
What stands out to me is a very talented young man. He's got real arm talent. He's a very good athlete. You can feel his competitiveness when he plays the game, and it's easy to, I got a chance to watch their game Thursday night. You could feel his competitiveness on TV. But even when you watch the coach's copy of the tape, he's a highly competitive young man that is really trying to give his all. And that's, I'm sure that makes Sonny proud. We've got a quarterback that plays that way. Usually that instills and bleeds into the rest of the team.
Yeah, you got to put doubt in his mind. You got to intercept balls. You got to make him fumble in the pocket, put doubt into his mind, and keep it that way all night long with this defensive line. With your line, not just pressure, but when you got a chance to strip sack tonight, take the ball away from him. That'll put all the doubt in the world in a guy who's backing up. Yeah, he's a competitor. That's great, but he's still a young quarterback, and make him pay for being and hanging in that pocket, because I've got a feeling they're going to throw a lot of balls. They're going to go in numbers and throwing the ball tonight.
You have to have watched how teams have been successful and how they failed against this Texas defense over the last several games now. Houston, you take BYU out of the equation. BYU's terrible on offense. They obviously didn't do anything against this Texas defense. But Kansas State last week, Houston, Oklahoma, they opened everything else up two ways. The biggest way was throwing the football down the field, middle of the field or otherwise, yes, but also letting the quarterback run on unscripted run plays at times as well. Now, Houston didn't do nearly as much of that. Kansas State didn't do a ton of it either. But look back at that Oklahoma game and Dylan Gabriel and what he was able to do to the Longhorns on the ground. And usually that was because he recognized that Texas was in a man formation. He found a little bit of a crease and was able to pick up huge yardage as a result, oftentimes resulting in either a first down or, I think in one case, a touchdown.
Yeah, I was very surprised last week that Avery Johnson didn't play enough to really let himself stay out there. I mean, their coaches made a decision pretty quick on him that he was just like wetting the bed early, and they weren't going to wait for him to get better as time went on through that game.
Yeah. So
they stuck with Howard, and that really surprised me because Johnson's a really, really good athlete, and that was a guy that I was worried about the entire week. But they didn't give him very much time. When he didn't get it done in the first couple of series, when he got in the game, that was it for him. It just was. I thought it was over kind of soon for him.
I wonder if there's an injury there right now that nobody's talking about, because he didn't play a ton the week before, even though Kansas State just crushed Houston the week before. It seemed like there was more of an opportunity for him to get into the game.
Sure.
And also, when you watch the game tape from earlier in the year, Kansas had success running the option on this Texas defense. So it felt like Avery Johnson might serve in that sort of role. Now, Josh Hoover is not that sort of quarterback, so I don't expect to see TCU try that tonight. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them go away from what we saw Kansas State to do last week, and that is try and throw a little bit more early in the game and also early in down and distance.
Well, as you see when Texas brings in their young linebackers, I mean, you can tell there's some voids in that 8-yard to 10-yard area for throws to be made. I mean, they're there. I mean, and vice versa for Texas. Now that they have their quarterback back, their starter back, J.D. Sanders has to be a part of your game plan tonight. I mean, get him back involved again in your offense, please.
Crazy to see that he only has one touchdown in the year. I mean, you know, this team has struggled in the red zone, and they've really struggled inside the 5-yard line. I know they tried a play to him in the BYU game that the BYU cornerback came up and made a really nice tackle to keep him from getting in the end zone. How about more throws to Jatavian Sanders? Actually in the end zone this time, though.
Sure.
And as far as the Texas linebackers go in their coverage, it's been a bit of a mixed bag this year. Jalen Ford established himself as one of the best coverage linebackers in the Big 12 last year, and we've seen some of that at times this year. We've also seen him struggle, And Anthony Hill, for as much as he has developed as a traditional linebacker, I feel like they're getting a little bit too cute with asking him to drop into coverage at times when they're having the nickel blitz, whether it's Jahdae Barron or somebody else. And Anthony Hill hasn't been great in coverage this year so far.
He's too young to be the cover guy right now, this time in his career.
Right.
No. You either put him out there where he can rush the passer or let him blitz in the B and C gap and let him go and let him put pressure on that quarterback, because he's going to run a lot of those quarterbacks down. If he misses the first time, he's going to come back on him and make plays for him. But in coverage, still kind of young for that.
Thank you to everybody for listening, whether it is on our free app or watching and listening on YouTube. I don't have a computer in front of me, so we're not going to be able to get to the YouTube comments today, Buck, but the YouTube comments line is brought to you by Clean Cause.
Love Clean Cause. They're the folks at Clean Cause. I mean, I'm a big part of the Clean family and Courtney and the whole gang over there. I love what they do for individuals who are in recovery from drugs and alcohol addiction. Half of the profits that Clean Cause gets, they put it right back in to folks that have addiction problems. And that's throughout Central Texas. That's not just in the Austin area. And you can see all their Yerba Mate drinks all over the place. They're at 7-Eleven. They're at H-E-B. They're at Whole Foods. They're every place. You'll see that Clean Cause. You'll see the sign. But what they do that's really important is 50% of the profits. That's a lot of profit right there that you could be putting back into your company. They put it into recovery. And most of the folks that work for those folks there are in recovery and have been in recovery, and they do a great job. And I love the folks at Clean Cause. Now, I'm a Yerba Mate drinker, but I'm a coffee drinker too. But they don't, it's not as, you don't get as jittery from that stuff that they have in their drinks, the caffeine that they have, that I do for my cup of Starbucks. There's some jitters in that bad boy. I love the folks at Clean Cause, and you'll love them too.
Going to give another quick Moonshine scoreboard update. Hey, guess what? Oklahoma State is on the board now. They've got 3 points. Unfortunately, they've given up another touchdown to UCF. The Golden Knights lead 31-3. Kansas State into the third, still clobbering Baylor 52-19. Miami is up on Florida State 13-10 right now. Texas fans should be rooting for Florida State to lose a game. That is one of the easiest paths to you getting into the college football playoff, is if Florida State loses. Doesn't seem like they're going to lose the rest of the way, but here we are. Miami with a 3-point lead with just under 11 minutes left in the third. Utah still leading Washington 28-24, 12:25 left in the third quarter there. Missouri has extended their lead on Tennessee. The number 14 Tigers lead the number 13 Vols 19-7. And Iowa and Rutgers, Hawkeyes still leading 3-0 halfway through the third quarter now. My goodness, is there easier money to be made in all of football week in and week out than taking the under on whatever the game that Iowa's in?
Or if it's not that one, it's anybody who plays Syracuse. That's how I feel.
Oh, what's the gig there?
They're bad. Dino Babers is probably going to get fired.
That's a shame. Sure. Dino's done a really good job there up to this point.
Yeah, maybe he's had last years, and they haven't moved the needle whatsoever. And I feel bad because I like Dave Aranda, but I think his days are probably over with down at Baylor too.
I thought this would be a bounce back year for them, and he gets a little bit of a pass because Blake Shapen did miss most of the first month of the season, but they've continued to not be very good.
They've gotten knocked out of the park too now.
Yeah, they've gotten killed at times. You're right about that. I don't see a Syracuse score right now, so I cannot confirm or deny that.
My God, if they lose to Pitt at home.
Oh, is that the game this week?
Yes.
Oh man, how do I find this? I can't figure it out on the ESPN scoreboard right now. All right, Bucky, let's talk about our offensive and defensive players of the game. We'll start in the offensive side of things. Offensive player of the game brought to you by Verde's.
Verde's, yes. Verde's right down the street. Right, that's one of my favorite places. When I eat my chicken, my pollo, I go to Verde's. And I'll tell you, I'm not a big zucchini eater, but they have chicken breast stuffed with zucchini, mushrooms, and cheese. And I love it. I love zucchini then.
This has made my stomach growl to hear you say that.
Oh, it's delicious. Their chicken meals are fantastic. And, of course, Verde's is a big sponsor of us when we have our meet and greets, and they do a wonderful job for those that do partake in the great margaritas that are out there. I myself cannot. I'm not allowed. Well, I'm allowed, but I don't know how.
You don't allow yourself.
Yes, I don't know how to partake and then say that's it. I continue to partake if I did partake.
Yeah, we don't. We love Dr. Bucky. We're not so crazy about Mr. Godbolts.
Now, Mr. Godbolts is another case. and he's been set aside for the last 23 years. But you will love Verde's for sure. I want to thank those folks at Verde's Mexican Grill. I'm going to take, as my offensive player of the game, I'm going to take Xavier Worthy. I think he gets well. Quinn Ewers is back. Quinn Ewers is going to be looking for him tonight. And that's why I want that arm to be healthy and be able to throw. As I said, we're going to find out early about how this arm is, because he's going long. He's going deep.
Is he?
Yeah, he's going deep.
I feel like there's an area that we see Quinn Ewers struggle. It's, the downfield accuracy has been hit or miss, pun intended there, I guess, for much of the last 2 seasons now. But I feel like if there's an area that Quinn doesn't look good, it is throwing the deep ball.
I think he's throwing the deep ball tonight.
On top of the fact that TCU plays those 3 high safeties to make it difficult for you to try and throw deep. And so maybe he just needs to get used to trying and finding some of those open receivers at the line of scrimmage, or maybe even the middle of the field.
And maybe, with Xavier Worthy over the last couple of weeks with his punt returning, maybe that becomes a part of it too.
Perhaps.
For him to be, I should be counting that as a defensive deal, but I'm counting the way he's played lately. I've liked the way he's played. I really have. He's cut down in his drops. He looks more fluid running his routes right now. He's done a better job in punt returns. I think he's understanding a little bit. Don't let it hit the ground. He's still running up into a crowd. Trey, he's not running up into crowds. You're seeing him find success punting the ball. If I was a special teams coordinator facing Texas, I would tell my punter, don't punt it deep. Don't outpunt your coverage. If you outpunt your coverage, this guy will burn you. Punt it high. Force him to make catches in traffic, because he's still afraid to do that. But when you can tell. When you give the guy room, that's when trouble finds you. No, when you dribble it to him and it takes one hop
or
to him and he catches it on the run, that becomes a problem to you. But no, he's still having that problem of finding out where that ball is going to land. When he goes flying up there in the crowd to get it, he doesn't want to feel that ball.
No,
he really, really doesn't. But he's been told enough, probably, don't let it hit. Don't let it hit. So. But I'm going to take him as offensive player of the game.
I'm probably overthinking this one. I'm going Jonathan Brooks. This feels like a great game to let Jonathan Brooks get cooking.
BK takes Jonathan Brooks every week.
BK and I are in the same wavelength here. We talk about it 12-1 every freaking day of the week. The Jonathan Brooks needs to be your bell cow. I don't know what this coaching staff has against this guy.
Yeah, remember this is the same coaching staff that thought he was the backup running back. Let's not ever forget that.
Exactly.
Now. Okay.
He's been disrespected since the start of the season. They've been forced to go with him at times because they have no other options, and he continues to make them look like geniuses in the process. Let Jonathan Brooks eat tonight. This is a great game to do so. Quinn is coming back. Make it a little bit easier on him. Once you get that 14-plus point lead, run the damn ball out. Yeah, it will be okay to do that. And by the way, don't let Jonathan Brooks rip off a big touchdown run and put Cedric Baxter in the very next series. Let Jonathan Brooks get back out there unless he's still gassed.
Well, what I saw from him last week was the first time he tapped out, but my son let me know that he had been hurt before in the game. He had either hurt shoulder injury, or neck. It sounded like, and Ricky Williams even said to me, he said, you know what? He said, Bucky, he got hurt earlier, and I think he may have hurt his neck area. And I said, okay, well, he sucked it up, got in there, ran hard. He had a really nice carry. He went out of the game. He tapped his helmet. They went out, and K-State called timeout. And I said, okay, now he's had a play off. There's a timeout. He can come back in, and he didn't come back in the game. And that's when they did a little option that they were successful with and tried it again with Cedric Baxter, and it got stuffed because, teams learn after you do that to them once in a game that they're not going to fall for it again if it's successful.
You do have to test it a second time, though. I have no issues with them running it again.
Or you do have to threaten the guy at the end of the line. You can't just take it and flip it to the guy. Or if that, you might as well just run a toss.
No, that's fair.
How about threatening the guy at the end of the line?
See, that's why it's frustrating to me to see Steve Sarkisian take his best option for granted at times. Like, you just assume that you're going to have Jonathan Brooks and you can ride him into the ground if you need to in a given game. But he tweaks his neck or he tweaks his shoulder last week, and so that's not as much of a possibility. And you have to go with CJ Baxter a little bit more, even though he did suck it up and he ran hard the rest of the way and finished the game and had another great game by his standards.
Did he practice all week? I heard he practiced all week.
I mean, that's what Steve Sarkisian says. You take the injury updates he gives to the media with the large grain of salt, but Jonathan Brooks is a tough dude, and he realizes that it took a bit of a fluke injury for him to get that opportunity once again. But once he did, he made the most of it. So he's going to be hard pressed to leave the game for any extended period of time because of an injury.
Yeah, I've got to believe with a team that if you look at this TCU team, they don't tackle well.
No.
And against a kid like this, even if you tackle well, he breaks tackles. So if you're not a good tackling defense, this is the kind of game that he can have an awful lot of yardage on you, can really, really hurt you with the run. This offensive line has blocked well enough over the last couple of games. He's back into getting that 100 yards a clip a game, but he can really puncture the defense, and you got to let him do that. And, if like I said, if he's – and I'm okay with C.J. Baxter now. I'm okay with him. He's now to the point of his career as a running back at Texas. I mean, whether he's the starter or not, he's good enough, and he's got the speed, and he's got the strength, and he's got the ability to make guys miss and run them over, because – this time next year, that dude will be a 225-pound monster of a running back at Texas. So I'm fine with him. I'm also fine with the kid Blue. I mean, if you want to try to break the perimeter on teams and they don't tackle well, get him out there on the outside. Let him come jet sweep, jump it off to him, and let him break down the perimeter so it loosens them up inside. So Jonathan Brooks is great between the tackles. He's got that little stutter step and the ability to make that first guy miss, even in tight quarters, make a guy miss. But he's not a toss sweep guy out there, but you've got a guy who can get out on the edge. And Jaden Blue, this dude can get outside.
Yeah, he's had some really nice moments these last few games. I think Keelan Robinson might be able to serve in that role too.
Keelan, he knows, we know you're here. He said, I'm still here. I'm still on this campus.
I think he said that because of the kickoff return, and he did have a couple of nice runs in that game.
Keep blocking punts.
Has he been blocking punts this year? I feel like that's something that's gone to the background this season.
Keep trying.
Keep trying.
Yeah,
keep learning that playbook.
You've got enough running backs.
That was the excuse 2 years ago, is Keelan didn't know enough of the playbook, even though every time he touched the ball, it felt like he was breaking off a big play. It's like, hey, do it with the limited playbook then. Like,
that's right.
Force the defense to show that they can stop the play that they know is coming.
Yeah, but you got to make them stop the run tonight. You really, really do. You're on the road. Your quarterback's just coming back. There's no reason to be flinging it all over the place, although my thoughts on Sark is he's going to fling it all over the place. He has to prove there's something about him to me that has to prove if the majority of people think in one way, Sark thinks he has to prove to you that he knows what's best at all times. So if it's a natural game where they don't tackle well, you should be really running the ball. I always think Sark is going to throw it 45 times. I don't know what that is about. I don't know what that is about him.
It's a strange ego thing with him. I don't get it either, because there's some times where it's like Malik Murphy's first game as a starter. You're going to throw it. I know technically it was 8, but 9 of the first 10 plays. You're going to throw it 9 of the first 10 plays with a guy that you're trying to get comfortable in there. How about taking some of the pressure off of him by running it a little bit and letting him throw off a play action after you run it a couple
and
of
how about
times?
Just using your best player.
And he talked about in the Monday presser after that too. Oh, what? Would it have been a good idea to run 8 of the first 10 times? No, it would have been a bad idea. Just like it was a bad idea to throw it 9 of the first 10 times too. There's a gray area in there that it's okay for you to acknowledge and say, you know what, we probably should have done that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm okay with an innovative coach that's going to do some things and do it out of the ordinary, but not to prove people. It always feels like it's trying to prove somebody wrong. When he brought the defensive players in there, I'm going to show you we're going to score off of this, no matter what you people think. It's going to happen down in the goal line. My expectation is that you're going to do it. Just like my expectations are, if you throw in quick screen, I don't know, 8 out of 9 games, that there's a real likelihood that quick screen's coming the first play of the game tonight. What do you want me to think? I mean, you give me the shocker or something? No, I mean, it's just they think that too. They look at film also of what you're doing. It's not just the fans that say, Coach, you should be running the ball a little bit more. Give this guy a couple more carries. It's the opposing team. They're doing the same thing. They want you to do what you're doing. Now I know you only lost 1 game, but hell, maybe you didn't have to lose that one.
You're the guy that keeps trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. You're not outsmarting anybody. You're just proving yourself as the guy who's dumb enough to continue trying to jam a square peg into a round hole.
You've got some really talented players. Use them. Use them all you can. And they've gotten to the point where they spread. A.D. Mitchell now is Ja'Tavion Sanders, you realize A.D. Mitchell now has taken his place running the same kind of routes that the tight end runs, getting that ball in that area where the tight end comes when they put him in he runs the tight end routes.
Yeah.
He runs Sanders' routes. So he's become, I mean, when I see him in the slot, I think of him almost as a tight end and not a wide receiver. He runs nice tight end routes. He catches the ball. Both quarterbacks have been so comfortable with that kid.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to be perfect. I've said this before. You don't have to throw the ball perfectly to him because he catches the low ball, the side ball, the real high ball, the ball that's almost, bouncing off other guys' chest. He's a really nice hand. So quarterbacks feel comfortable in him. And you want to feel comfortable throwing to a guy, especially in the seams and in the middle of the field where, those, what they call those tight windows. He's their guy now. He's like the tight end. But they've got to get that other big dude because I hear that he's one of the best tight ends in the nation. But
JT Sanders?
I don't see the numbers that tell me, is he?
Not since before the Oklahoma game. I mean, last month, I know that part of that was dealing with the ankle or knee injury, whatever it was that he hurt himself getting rolled up on versus Kansas. But
he looked okay physically last week. He looked like he was back.
He did look better. He looked better coming off the bye week, too, for that matter. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it was really more of a Malik Murphy thing and him not being as comfortable throwing it to the tight end, but that guy is still one of the best tight ends in the country. You just have to use him as such.
And sometimes you have to force balls to certain guys. I mean, Sark will always come on a Monday and said, we only have one football. So if such and such gets 8 catches, it's going to take away from such. I'm thinking, okay, I like A.D. Mitchell. I love what he's doing, but he shouldn't be getting all those tight end routes. He's a wide receiver now. The comfortability, that's fine too. It's whoever the quarterback's comfortable throwing the ball to. If A.D. Mitchell catches 15, 16 balls in a game, they win, I'm fine. But you can't leave Sanders catching one ball.
No, I mean, A.D. Mitchell is the number 1 wide receiver for this team.
Sure.
We can agree to that, right?
Yes, for sure.
Even with Quinn Ewers back in there,
yes.
We were seeing that tendency before he went out.
It was starting to happen with him.
Looking to A.D. Mitchell a whole lot more. And you're exactly right. When you're playing with a teammate that makes you look better,
yes.
It's hard not to go back to him over and over again.
I keep throwing it to him too.
Xavier Worthy has some of that to him. It's not nearly as smooth looking as with A.D. Mitchell, though.
No, the ball that comes back here, he reaches back and he grabs with his hands. I mean, that
but
makes you feel
JT
good.
Sanders has that too. Now, JT Sanders has also had some issues with dropping the football. Now, granted, in the Oklahoma game, he took a hard shot. I think it was Billy Bowman or
it was a high pass. It was
Peyton Bowman. It was a high pass, but it was still a ball that I think if he were completely healthy, he would have come down with.
Yeah.
And that turns into an interception. So is that something that was in the back of Quinn's mind? Is that can I count on this guy now because he is a little bit dinged up? But he needs to recognize that JT Sanders is back to maybe not 100%, but 95% and clearly good enough to be out there and still one of the best tight ends in this conference and in the country, too.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get you. There are times when coaches tell you, well, we only have one ball. I can't give that all those catches to that guy. We try to spread it around, but if such and such catches 15 and that guy catches 8, well, there's not going to be any for the other guy. Oh, no. There is going to be some for the other guy if you make sure you get him some. You've got to throw to him. He's a big part of your offense because he's a big part of your run game at tight end. As I've always said about him, if you don't start getting him involved, you're going to need him in the fourth quarter, and you're going to ask him to make certain blocks for you at when you want your run game, and he's going to look at you and go, me? You mean the guy you forgot about? You mean you want me to do this now? I mean, people think players aren't like that. Players are like that. People are like that. You mean you're not paying attention to me, but you want me to pay attention to what you want me to do here later on in life? You better pay attention to them early because they're like that. The football players are like that. Sports people are like that. Coaches are like that. You have to give them their attention if you want them to be around in crunch time.
You know who else Texas fans need to be paying attention to early in this game, Buck? The unseen second opponent in tonight's game. Opponent that has been there all this season, all last season, really ever since Texas and OU announced that they were headed to the SEC. That would be Big 12 refs. Steve Sarkisian was asked about it at his Monday presser this week. And look, we're not saying this is the end all, but the guy has a freaking point here, doesn't he?
As far as what's called and what's not, a couple things I know this. In my opinion, we have the two most dominant defensive interior linemen in the country, and if not the country, in our conference. And I'm not sure if they've gotten a holding penalty called on either of them yet this year. So I'm not sure how that adds up, but I just got to keep getting those guys to play hard and be committed to trying to affect the game, the run game, the pass game that way. And the same when we throw the football. I mean, I love when I line up and I see 1 and 5 out there together. I know they're a problem for our opponents. And so I recognize people are going to do things to try to minimize their effectiveness to the game. And we're going to take advantage of those opportunities when they're there. If things get called, they get called. If they don't, we just don't have a lot of time to complain about it. We've got to go on to the next play. And the moment we start getting caught up in that, then it's going to start to affect their play and our play to call the things necessary. So, it's the way it goes. And I've said this all along, like, we need to focus on what we need to do and not get caught up in what's getting called and what's not.
And that's what you're supposed to do as the head coach. That's why they pay you all that money. You're supposed to bitch and moan about things that happen early in the week. Now, you can't go through practice still talking about, you remember that play last week? If we'd have had that. That's what Monday's about.
Well, I don't think he was really complaining either. He's pointing out we have the two best defensive tackles in the country, and they have one hold calls against both of them collectively this year. I don't think it was the same answer. I think it was later in the presser. He talked about how Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell
dragged down,
have a single pass interference called against them so far in conference play this year too. That is absurd. I think it proves the point that the Big 12 Revs are not only not doing Texas any favors, they are completely screwing them at times. And maybe it adds to just how impressive this season has been for Texas. They've been able to overcome those things and still win most every game this year.
Well, as you see, the coach, as I said, he can talk about that early in the week, but he can't think about it as practice goes on through the week. Well, maybe we'll get the call this week. Maybe it's our week to get the calls. No, you just got to go play. Your athletes are better, but they can't be dragged down and grabbed by the arms on pass that are pass interference. That's not even close to not being pass. It was pass interference. The second it happened, it'd always be pass interference. Some of those calls are ridiculous, but yeah. I mean, I understand, but I'm glad he really points that out. At least he understands what's going on right in front of him.
And he's taking the right attitude too. Like, we can recognize that while also not dwelling on it either, because it's completely out of our control. So we can't bitch and moan about that, and we can't let that snowball into it affecting our mentality and our focus for the plays going forward. We just have to, we can acknowledge this is something that happened and it sucks, but this is kind of what we're battling against right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have collisions in the secondary with your wide receivers. Sometimes they'll call it, sometimes they won't. You'll get the benefit of the calls. Sometimes they'll get the benefit of the calls. Let them play. You know, 1 week it's like, let them play. The next week it's like, if you put your glove on a wide receiver, they haven't got very many of those calls this year. And I'm glad he talked about that. I'm glad he understands what's going on. He and his coaches see it. I mean, they see the film. You know, they make the calls to the commissioner, which the commissioner says, so what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
We'll see you against Texas Tech.
Brett Yormark. We'll see you. I'll be in Austin for Texas Tech unless I test positive for COVID that week, and then I'm going to have to miss that game. And I may still be positive for the Big 12 championship game too, so that my deputy commissioner will have to hand you that trophy if you end up winning that last Big 12 championship. I want my coach to understand what's going on out there when I'm running routes and stuff, and he's aware of that. But I like the way he's handling it. We have another Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill scoreboard update. 2 Moonshines in Austin, 1 downtown, the other at Avery Ranch, where I am in Cedar Park. We've had a explosion of points in Iowa-Rutgers, Buck. Iowa, somehow the number 22 team in the country, despite the fact that they are setting offensive football back by half a century. They have doubled their point total now at the end of the third quarter. Iowa now leading 6-0 over Rutgers. On a more serious note, the Big 12 games happening right now. Oklahoma State getting throttled by UCF, 38-3 now. That game has under 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And Kansas State, halfway through the fourth quarter, they are still clobbering Baylor, 52-19. Florida State, unfortunately, Longhorn fans, they have taken a lead on Miami. They are up a touchdown right now, 20-13 with 4 minutes left in the third. Washington cut it within a point. Utah still leads that one, 28-27 in Seattle, 6:40 left in the third quarter there. Missouri has extended their lead on Tennessee. The number 14 Tigers lead the number 13 Vols, 22-7. Oregon State, that game started. It's 7 minutes into that one. Oregon State leads 14-0 over Stanford. Earlier today, if you missed it, Michigan, well, they ran all over Penn State. 30 straight runs in the second half. They win that one 24-15. Game actually wasn't as close as the score indicates. Alabama beat Kentucky 49-21. Texas Tech upsets Kansas, who loses Jason Bean to a lower leg injury early in that contest. 16-13 for the Red Raiders. Tulane beat Tulsa 24-22. And Arizona, they did win on a late field goal over Colorado 34-31.
Wow. Good scores. A lot of good scores. I need Florida State to go ahead and lose tonight.
I know. I'm bummed that Miami let that one slip, and now Florida State does lead by a touchdown.
Yeah, but you just got to take care of your own business, and there's a lot to take care of tonight for the Texas Longhorns on the road. Getting their starting quarterback is a good thing. Protecting him and making sure that nobody hits him tonight is another. There could be some brawls going on tonight. When you start taking shots, and they're going to take shots, because if it's borderline with him stepping out of bounds, they're going to hit him.
Yes, they are. But let's talk about the Texas defense a little bit. We're going to go with our defensive players of the game right now, Buck, brought to you by Kenfield Golf Cars. If you're in the market for a new or pre-owned golf cart, look no further than Kenfield Golf Cars. They were founded in 1979 and have an unparalleled selection of different golf carts available in new or used. They would love to turn your existing golf cart into your own design, or you can let them build a golf cart to fit your needs. Nobody does it better than Kenfield Golf Cars. Check out their website, kenfieldgolfcars.com, for more info, or give them a call, 512-258-8515. That's 512-258-8515. Who is your defensive player of the game tonight?
Anthony Hill.
Oh, wow.
Going back towards his hometown. And
close.
This is, I think this is a game for this young guy to shine. I think his athletic ability, I'm just trying to figure out where they're going to play him, what they're going to do with him. They need to send him after this young quarterback, this inexperienced quarterback. Get him out there on the edge and let him pass rush tonight.
I feel like in their attempts to make sure he develops as an overall linebacker, they've gotten away from what he does best.
Yes, and that was get after the quarterback.
It's like Arthur Smith saying Bijan Robinson plays a great decoy, sending the ball the other direction because everybody expects Bijan Robinson to get the football. Well, guess what? Sometimes march Anthony Hill up to the line of scrimmage and force that offensive line to deal with the fact that he is a nasty mofo going after the quarterback.
Absolutely.
We have not seen enough of that over the last month now. I want to see them get back to that and having him drop into coverage less.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I believe they've got to sick him after the quarterback, get him out there on one of these tackles and let him beat him around the corner to get to the quarterback. They need this defense, and this is the kid who can really, I think, create turnovers with his pass rush, come up from behind the quarterback and strip the ball away from him, not just sack him. Pressures are nice. Pressures are great. This team was the best in the nation last year at pressures, but they didn't get enough turnovers. Now, Sark has been talking about getting turnovers, and he's been getting them now.
Yeah.
Ever since he started talking about, now we got to go to a different level. We need to make them turn the ball over, give the ball to us, take it away from them. I think this is a night when you go after it, when you go after the ball, when you got your quarterback coming back. This is a time where your defense, who has stepped up all year long to create turnovers and put you in really great field position, especially with the quarterback that I don't know how many times he's going to throw it. Hopefully he's not going to throw it more than 25 times tonight. But as I said, we don't know. We don't know what to expect. We hear he's practicing well. We hear he's throwing okay. But I don't like those games when it's a little misty and crappy, and you got an AC joint injury.
A little slick.
It's a little slick out there. You know, I want my defense to give me some balls that are at the 30-yard line going in. And I think we need to see that. And I think this is the kid who can do it.
Perhaps on that note, this guy's kind of turned into the Jonathan Brooks for the defense in terms of me picking him as a defensive player of the game week in and week out. My defensive player of the game is going to be Jahdae Barron. He is good against the run. He is good against the pass. He's really been one of the few steadying influences in that secondary this year. They had to put him in the game, even though they didn't want to play him against Houston because the secondary was so bad, and he helped steady the secondary enough in that situation as well. We saw a couple games ago against BYU. He had a big deflection that turned into an interception for his secondary mate, Terrence Brooks. And Jahdae Barron, I think, has a huge game tonight against a TCU team that probably will throw the ball a little bit more.
Yep.
And I think you see him with that nice mix of going after the quarterback at times on passing downs, but also dropping into coverage and either locking his guy down, or if Josh Hoover is foolish enough to throw it his way, he may come up with an interception.
Yeah, he really is a guy that when you watch him play, he's not just a natural at what he does. He looks like a guy who really studies film. He studies who he's playing against and what are some of the faults of the quarterbacks and what they're liable to do. And he just looks at it over and over and over again. And he knows when a quarterback gets into a little bit of a problem, here's what he's going to try to do. And he plays that, to his strength. And I like that about him, because that's a good thing to have a guy back there who's a film studying guy of what your opponent does, and especially what your quarterback does and the weaknesses or when he's going to throw it. He'll throw late. If you've got a young guy that's throwing late, that's where Barron, I believe, that's where he makes his hay right there on late throwers.
Completely agreed. And what else do you expect out of the secondary tonight? It's been Ryan Watts and Terrence Brooks seem to have been the starting cornerbacks these last couple of games. Seen a fair amount of Muhammad, the true freshman, back there. Gavin Holmes a little bit less, which is a bit surprising to me. I thought we would see more of him throughout the course of the year. But do you expect Ryan Watts and Terrence Brooks to really continue showing some improvements as cover cornerbacks in this game?
I think I've seen of Watts is the same I saw him last year. Sometimes he's real good, and sometimes he's just kind of average. I don't see him ever as really, really bad. But I think if he's very, very average, I think he can get his hands on. When he can get his hands on a guy, it's fabulous. But when he's in space, he tends to lose where he is. You lose sight of where the guy is that he's supposed to be covering. That's what I see from him. I think he's a physical corner, but if he doesn't get his hands on him and they get by, he's
good at the start of a route. If a quarterback has enough time, though, his guy will eventually be open.
Yeah, it seems like his guys kind of get open later on in a route, but little guys seem to give him a lot of problems. And bigger receivers don't tend to give him that way because he can muscle up to them and catch up to them. The small guys give him a problem. Mm-hmm. They really, really do. But I don't know. And Brooks, I was expecting he would be. He was fabulous last year.
He would be better this year. Well, yeah, he ended strong. He had a really nice bowl game. Right. Had some struggles, but you expect that out of a true freshman at cornerback. He looked so good in the bowl game, and you heard great things about him in the offseason too, that you expected him to take some major strides forward. He did through the first 5 games, then Oklahoma happened, and then some games after that as well. And as the secondary kind of fell apart with less guys.
Did happen to this group, to this secondary as a group. It just was,
I agree.
The 4.5, the 2 minutes, the dropping everybody back in coverage, just playing in little zones and giving up big chunks of yards.
I don't understand why PK runs some variation of prevents in situations where they need to make a stop. Yeah, that's not good.
And it doesn't do anything for your confidence as a secondary guy.
No.
So I don't understand that part of it, but I just know there's individuals back there that are the same person I saw 2 years ago when they were starters. When they started back there, I'm thinking, okay, now it's 2 years later. You should be pretty damn good. You were okay then. You were pretty good then. How can you not be better than you were?
Jaron Thompson seems like a better player 2 years ago than he is right now. What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. But they're picking on him.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean, teams know who they're going to go after.
I hope Keaton Crawford isn't out there at all tonight. He wasn't out there at all last week, and I think you saw improved play out of the safeties as a result of that.
They pick on you. That's the spot that they'll pick on you.
They should. They see that, and they see that watching game tape. The coaches definitely see it, and the players that are watching it see it too.
Yeah, and they get after them, and they practice. They practice things like going against individual players. That's what you do a guy in the secondary. If there's a weak link, you attack him. You find ways to attack him. Make him have to be the guy, the decision maker. You don't have to be the one. We'll put it on that guy over there to make the first move. So, as I said, I expected this, and I said before the season, I thought by midway this would be one of the top 10 secondaries in the country. Whew, man.
No, we're still waiting for a return to DBU because even though Texas could stake a claim to that title, it's been a while now, unfortunately. I mean, you go back to the Charlie Strong era, the secondary was entirely too much of a sieve. They've put some guys in the NFL, but as a unit, they have not been dominant for more than a decade at this point.
And Sark understands that because he's going to put up for his players and he's going to tell you, well, we're stopping the run. So the numbers in the throw game, you can't be perfect back there in the throwing game.
You could be better, though.
Yes, you can. You can be damn better.
Yeah.
You're right.
Especially with all the backup quarterbacks that you faced this year, too.
And a lot of them throughout the whole season, it's been about 4 or 5 backup quarterbacks.
Now, there definitely is a conversation to be had because just officiating in football and how football has geared itself towards more successes in the passing attack and giving the offense every advantage possible, it does make it more difficult to stop a team throwing the football each and every down, of course. But there is still a heightened level of play that we haven't seen out of this Texas secondary really over the last month now. BYU is an exception, but BYU sucks. Oklahoma, Houston, and Kansas State last week left a lot to be desired in terms of this defense's ability to cover, because this is the side of the ball that gives you the most faith in terms of this team winning a conference championship and maybe making some noise in a 14 college football playoff.
Well, teams are smarter when they play against Texas now. They truly understand they can't run against them. Yes, and the first down for Texas has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Nobody's dropping back. Beginning of the season, they got gouged those first series. There was some big run where teams would gouge them for 20, a 15-yard run. It's not happening anymore. They don't get that. They don't get that against this group anymore. So they go right into their bags of tricks, and they're going to throw the ball. They're not going to spend all day saying, hey, listen, we're going to go 4 quarters, but we're still going to run. Oh, no, we're just going to throw. We're just going to drop back. We're going to have every opportunity. We're going to pick guys. We're going to do everything we can. We'll run fly motion. We'll do anything we can. But we're not going to bang our heads against the wall trying to run against this defense. Teams before would continue to try to run against this defense, in the Big 12. They would say, you know what? Eventually Texas will wear out. They'll give in. And that's what the TCU group has always thought. Eventually, no matter how good you think they are in the run game, we're going to run on them. It'll be maybe 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, but we're going to run on their asses some way, shape, or form. We're going to make them pay with the run game. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anybody just go to the point of saying, yeah, let's do it to them. No, it's been a brick wall. I mean, they've stoned everybody.
Yes, they have.
Including Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama had a little bit of success running early in that game, but throughout the course of the contest, that Texas defensive front is so physical, it just wears you down.
Yes.
That's why, if anything, you maybe try and run a little bit more later in the game and you throw early on, but we'll see what TCU does. Maybe they'll make the same mistake everybody else does. Now, this TCU team, this TCU program is one that has given the Longhorns fits since they entered the Big 12 a little bit more than a decade ago, and that includes a win last year. Now, Texas was able to keep it relatively close, but ultimately TCU wins that game. They go on to make the college football playoff, make it all the way to the national championship game before getting boat raced by Georgia. And Steve Sarkisian was asked earlier this week about getting revenge on a TCU team that you felt like you could have beat last year.
That's always critical on the road, is that you play really well together. We don't get to bring as many people. We only get to bring 70 players, so that we're tight together. We've got great poise, great composure, and that we understand we're built for the arena. We're built for the environment. And naturally, too, I think for our players, we didn't play very good against them last year, and you turn that tape on. They had a really good football team like they do this year. But, man, we didn't put our best foot forward a year ago, and we made some really uncharacteristic errors that I think a lot of the guys on our team would like to I want to go show them what I'm actually capable of and the way that I can really play. And so that's something that I know the guys are looking forward to as well.
Whatever you have to use, Coach, whatever you have to use. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. If revenge is on your mind and your players think that's what they need to have, the fact that you're trying to get to the championship should be plenty. That that you can't afford to lose a game from this point on. That's plenty. I don't need revenge, but I need the fact that, and he's right. There was a bunch of guys that didn't play well last year in that particular football game, and that was a really good TCU team last year. As I said, 11 guys are playing in the NFL right now, so I wouldn't need revenge. I would know from watching the film of me playing in that game last year. If I didn't play well, I just want to play better. The revenge deal that's for boxers. That's kind of for guys that goes, MMA or whatever it is. That's good. Football, there's too many people involved in revenge deals.
Revenge can matter, but it's situational also. Like if you were to tell me that Oklahoma was looking for revenge this year, considering last year's beatdown, I would believe you there. But to talk about revenge like that, TCU didn't score a ton of points last year. It was a close-ish game. The defense played well. The offense just kind of crapped the bed, though. Is the
People were saying
revenge
that you didn't give the ball enough to your great running back last year?
Well, that's been a problem throughout Steve Sarkisian's time, which is strange because he always has 1,000-yard rusher.
Yes.
But I don't buy the revenge thing for this year's game. What I buy is that this team understands that their goals are still squarely in front of them and completely in their control too. If anything, you need to be thinking about that more than you do revenge on a team that is a shell of itself from last year.
Correct. You've got better talent. You've got better players right now. Your scheme should be better. Your defense is playing fantastic. And that team is not the same team from last year. And plus, as you said, the most important thing is every goal that you've had is sitting right there. And it's in your hands now. It's not up to anybody else. You win them all. You win the rest of these games. You're playing in the Big 12 championship. That's your first goal. If you just happen to get to the college, playoffs, it's in your hands too. You have to win that particular game. Not only do you have to win the championship, you got to win that game in order to go to the next step. So it's all up to you. You can, and if revenge is on your mind, it'll make you play better. So be it.
Yeah, that is right.
Bad as hell. Have a lot of revenge then. Don't just have a little revenge. Have a lot of revenge tonight.
No, if there's a revenge game left on the schedule for this football team, it's not TCU this weekend. It's not Iowa State next weekend.
Know which game it is.
It's Texas Tech. And the revenge has less to do with Texas Tech and more to do with the conference commissioner and what he said in the preseason to a crowd of Tech fans. That's where you're trying to get revenge, even if he does pop positive for COVID a couple of days before the game itself.
Yeah, even if he can't show up, he can't show up.
You want to make sure you win these last 3 games so that even if he doesn't show up in Austin, you get to see his face if you have the opportunity to win that Big 12 championship game, and he has to hand it to your coach, Steve Sarkisian, and Sark just gives him a dead in the eye smile. Thanks a lot, Commish. We appreciate this last Big 12 championship trophy.
Oh, yeah, that's the great. There's the revenge for me right there. If that's what I'd be looking forward to. Plus, I'd be looking forward to winning a championship. You've got a championship at stake here. You got a couple games left. And for a lot of guys, these last 3 games are very meaningful. And to me, once again, if this team leaves out of this conference and they don't leave in this championship game, I'm thinking of this team as being Mississippi State when they go to SEC. That's just in my mind what I see. I know you don't like to hear that. I know folks don't want to hear it, but that's in my mind. If they don't get to this game, and once again, if you get to the championship game, a lot of things can happen. It's championship football. I mean, 2 teams that play in championship games are generally pretty good. Yeah. So anything can happen. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't take very much for you to lose that game, but you got to the championship. You got there. I just can't.
You feel good about the directions that the lines of scrimmage are headed for SEC play, but Tavondre Sweat's gone after this year.
Yes.
Is Byron Murphy gone after this year? Byron Murphy's gone after this year too. Alfred Collins has gone after this year.
Did he ever? Was he here? He was here.
He's been more here this season, according to some. Okay. I see him make plays from time to time, but I'm also not watching the defensive line closely to see those plays where he's not necessarily adding to his statistical total in some way, shape, or form. Texas is going to have to do a little bit of a reload on that defensive line. That's where it gets concerning for the SEC play, because if you aren't ready to go on either that offensive or defensive line, you are going to turn into Mississippi State.
Yeah, I just don't want to see that. That's why you need a championship under your belt, because the recruiting that starts right after that, the recruiting that's starting now, the same group, when you go up to Arlington, you will be in recruiting mode then. That will be huge.
All right, let's get to Bucky's 3 keys of the game, brought to you by Hat Creek Burger Company. Did you know 2023 is the 15th anniversary for Hat Creek? They started as a food truck in Austin behind Star Bar on West 6th Street back in 2008. Since then, they have continued to grow to 26 locations across Texas, with spots in Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Temple, and Waco. It is a phenomenal spot to take the family. My family loves going there. The kids love hanging out on the playscape as we're waiting for our food to be ordered. And yeah, they love the food too. The burgers, the fries, the sweet potato fries, and yes, that birthday cake shake. And as Bucky loves to tell you, their breakfast tacos are top notch as
find
well.
Out the location around you that it serves breakfast. Not every location has breakfast, but the ones that have breakfast starts at 7 a.m.
That's good to know.
Pancakes are fantastic. Sausage, eggs, tacos, the whole works. They've got a great breakfast menu there.
What's your Hat Creek location?
My favorite Hat Creek, I've got one in Dripping.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, I've got one on 290 in Dripping.
Nice.
That's the one I hit. And yes, I love their milkshakes. I'm a big shake. They have strawberry shake, straight up.
I'm sure the strawberry shake is fine. The birthday cake shake is where it's at, though.
Is
my
it though?
friends.
I have not done that.
Oh yeah,
I have not done
you,
that.
You
okay.
want your wife to be upset with you? Just bring a large birthday cake shake home. She's gonna get upset, but then give her a taste, and then she'll realize why you made that health/non-health decision.
Yeah, I haven't quite been able to do that. My front seat of my car is called the crime scene. She has yellow tape across it when she sees rappers and things like that. All right, 3 keys to victory brought to you by our good friends at Hat Creek. Number 1, establish your run game early. This team is very average at best at tackling. So you want to establish Jonathan Brooks early, CJ Baxter, wherever you're going to put in there, you can break tackles with this group. And it's going to be hard enough to tackle Jonathan Brooks on a kind of slick night tonight as it is anyway. So number 1, establish that run game. Pressure the quarterback all night long. Make it tough and uncomfortable for this quarterback. And I'm talking about strip the ball. Let's not just get up in his face and have him throw the ball. Let's take the ball away from him. Sark's been talking about takeaways.
One thing to keep in mind with that, TCU does like to get the ball out early. They realize that they've got a young guy. They don't want him to hold on to the football because bad things happen or worse things happen when you hold on to the football. They also have an offensive line that does have experience across the board in terms of seniority. But yes, look for quick throws out of the quarterback.
Well, there's no doubt about that, Trey, because they did lose 2 guys to the NFL. They were outstanding offensive linemen. So, yeah, as I said, pressure the quarterback. Number 3, score TDs in the red zone, please.
Okay.
That used to be.
I hope unicorns are real too, but I've given up on that dream.
That's the first time I put that in my 3 keys to victory.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've left those out because I'm figuring, well, yeah, Buck, they want to score touchdowns in the red zone. Make it an emphasis somehow, because if you've made it an emphasis, nobody's listening to it.
Hey, maybe a leprechaun can pop out of a pylon after scores in the red zone and go slide down the goalpost, you know?
Well, I think Sanders, as you said, start finding this guy in the scoring zone and down at the goal line. And please leave those defensive players, once again, leave them to the side. I don't know, the bull cat or the red cat or whatever you've been using lately. That's starting to wear its welcome out too a little bit.
You can do it a little bit here and there, but don't let teams get accustomed to that, because then it becomes a gimmick. Like, I feel like it's as simple as spreading it out and playing the numbers game. And if they're committing too much to the run, throw the football to where you have the numbers advantage. Or if they're committing too much to the pass, then maybe hand it off to Jonathan Brooks.
Yes, thank you.
But I'm sorry, you are not the more physical football team out there right now, unless you're playing a far inferior opponent. I don't know if TCU is that, even though they're not a great tackling team right now.
Well, make them tackle Jonathan Brooks in these situations in the red zone. And if he picks up 3 yards for a first down, give it to him again. And you're allowed to give it to him on second down. You know, Michigan did run 30 straight times today. Yeah. 30 straight times they ran the football.
That's insane.
I mean, I know it's insane. I mean, they just obliterated Penn State defensive line by running it at the end of the game and saying, guess what? We're going to run the clock out. They ran the clock out on them. And as you said, in that game, it wasn't even that close. It just wasn't that close. So
no.
If you have an opportunity to run the ball tonight and run it with some success. Now, once again, don't beat that dead horse. If you can't, throw the ball, but they should be able to run the ball tonight. I think so. And as I said, CJ Baxter, I like the way he runs. He's gotten to that point in his career now as a freshman that that guy will be a stud here in the next couple of years.
This is what was said about him coming out of high school. He was an early enrollee. Just wait for the guy to get the right weight on. When that happens, he is going to be one of those dominant physical running backs like you've become accustomed to with Alabama over time, right? Najee Harris is a guy that he was eliciting a lot of comparisons to. I realize Najee Harris hasn't been the best pro. Think back to what Najee Harris was at Alabama, though. That guy was ridiculous. That's the type of running back you're getting with CJ Baxter.
Yeah, I mean, his body lean, I mean, he's different from the way he was in the beginning of the year. Remember, every time he got hit, he came up limping. Something was wrong.
Yeah.
He was falling down.
That's right.
He was falling down hard, falling down funny. I mean, I even talked to Ricky a little bit about the way he falls. I said, do you notice? He says, yeah, he falls hard.
Seems like he needs to go to the Bucky Godbolt School for Falling Good.
Yeah, maybe he needs to turn that shoulder, but not turn that shoulder to where it points down.
You learn how to roll into it.
Yeah. Some of those things really matter for running backs. You're taking up hits as it is anyway. going down to the ground with guys on you is something that you kind of can prevent that.
I feel like that's something where a kid hasn't been taught to roll well, like as a child. Like I had to teach my 7-year-old. He was like falling onto his head at the age of 5. Brock is raising his hand. Apparently Brock had a hard time with it. Yeah, the Bucky Godbolt School of Falling Good. Exactly.
Bucky Godbolt falls down a lot, so he's used to learning how to turn his body in the air.
Guy's not learning how to fall as kids. Like my 7-year-old understands how to fall now, and I'm less worried about him suffering a head injury every time he hits the ground.
Well, I mean, you have to do that. When you get into your 60s and you start to trip, you just need to understand the first thing you stick out is not your arm, so that pencil of an arm that you have as almost 70 years old snaps. You can't do that. You have to be able to learn which cheek to fall on. You don't fall on your hip bone. That's why God gave you 2 cheeks. Learn how to fall on that part of your body. Let that absorb the blow.
Maybe it's because I'm a clumsy dude. I understand how to fall. Like whenever I'm playing sand volleyball in the mornings, I'm the oldest guy out there, but I'm the guy who gets hurt the least because I understand when I'm hitting the sand how I need to roll to hit the sand and not just land squarely. Now, I have suffered an AC joint injury, so I guess that's not a great example there. But the first rule of the Bucky Godbolt School of Falling Good.
Keep your head out of it.
Is not just that, it's you can't suffer an injury from falling going forward now that we've advertised the Bucky Godbolt School of Falling Good.
I get the mattress out there once a month, invite kids in the neighborhood to come over. I just know the first thing of my fall school is keep your head out of it.
Yeah, keep your head up. Seriously.
Yeah, make sure your head gets thrown away from where that weight of your body's going. Your head you can't have your head slam on anything. That dome, and I know I've got a soft melon, man. I throw that thing up and away. So, but I think when CJ Baxter is done, he'll be maybe a 230-pound running back.
That sounds about right. Because he's about 215 now, right?
Yeah, and I mean he's over 6'1". I mean, that got to be a 6'2", 230-pound machine running through the line, and he's got great speed.
And you've seen some of the car crashes he's initiated this year where he's still a little bit too light in the ass.
Yeah, wait till he starts dishing out that punishment.
Exactly. All right, we're gonna go back to the scoreboard now. Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill college football scoreboard. Have some scores to update you on. Let's start with the Big 12. Man, Vegas kind of called this one, although they were way off too. UCF is now beating Oklahoma State 45-3 with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma State falls back into a however many way tie with several other schools for that second spot in the Big 12 title game. Texas path gets a little bit easier today with Oklahoma State losing, although they don't play the Cowboys. Texas needs to continue taking care of its business. Kansas State did finish off Baylor. The ranked matchups going on right now. Florida State still leads Miami 20-13, 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter in that one. Washington now up on Utah 35-28, just under 11 minutes left in that game. In Seattle, they also have the football on the Utah 44, although it looks like they're about to punt. Missouri, they are crushing Tennessee now. A lot of people impressed with Missouri after last weekend's loss to Georgia. This team is legitimate. Eli Drinkowitz getting the job done there. They're winning 36-7 over the Vols with just under 6 minutes left in that game. Iowa, they've got 15 points on the board now, shutting out Rutgers 15-0. 5 minutes left in that game. Oregon State is crushing Stanford with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, 27-17. Games from earlier today, if you missed it, Bucky has been talking about it throughout the last hour and a half or so. Michigan, they beat Penn State 24-15, running it 30 straight times in the second half. Alabama beat Kentucky 49-21. Texas Tech upsets Kansas, who loses Jason Bean early in that game 16-13. Tulane beat Tulsa 24-22. Arizona beats Colorado on a late field goal 34-31. And as I mentioned, Kansas State beat Baylor 59-25.
Well, Arizona in their turnaround as they get ready to move to the Big 12. Is that correct? Is Arizona the team that is coming in here, right?
I got to give our guy Kevin Dunn some credit for calling Arizona early on. He was like, watch out for this Arizona team. They are a decent football team right now, and they've proven as Dutch. I mean, they're it took them probably a little bit more effort than they would have hoped to beat a bad Colorado team, but they're 21 right now, and they're probably going to move into the top 20 rankings after this weekend.
That's interesting. Yeah, they've played everybody. They've played teams pretty tough and won a bunch of games so far this year.
Yes, they have. Some ranked matchups a little bit later on to go along with Texas-TCU, which kicks off at 6:30. We do have Ole Miss and Georgia. That's 9 versus 2, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Oklahoma hosting West Virginia. I've seen some people predicting Oklahoma to lose this one. I think Oklahoma takes care of business tonight. That game is a 6 o'clock Fox kickoff. Ohio State hosts Michigan State at 6:30 on NBC. LSU hosts Florida, 6:30 on the SEC network. North Carolina and Duke. It's a good rivalry in basketball. Football, not so much. ACC network at 7 o'clock. And then Oregon hosts USC. God, USC is just limping to the finish line at this point. They did get rid of Alex Grinch. Will it make a difference? We'll find out starting at 9:30 on Fox.
Can't hurt. I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think USC is just wants the season to be over with. This is where NIL is helping out college football, because I imagine we would see Caleb Williams hanging it up for the season and getting ready for the NFL draft. He signed a deal, though, that is forcing him to stay in games until the end of the regular season, because otherwise he's going to have to give some NIL money back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he will be the number one player to leave for the NFL. And I got a feeling somebody's about to get a lucrative NIL deal out there in Southern California.
To come to USC to play quarterback?
Somebody's coming there and going to make a lot of money.
Pretty good feeling of who that is. Gosh, who was it who said this earlier in the week? Was it Jeff Barker? No, Kevin BK. I don't remember who it was. Supposedly Jalen Daniels is not really dealing with a serious back injury, which just so happened to have flared up right before a huge game against Texas here in Austin.
He may not be playing.
It's him sitting out because Kansas couldn't match what he was asking for, and things are lined up for him to take over at quarterback at USC next year. Did they? So Brock says they got one of the top quarterbacks in the country in last year's recruiting class. It's possible, but you don't want to force that guy into action sooner than you have to. If you can get Jalen Daniels for 1 year to put a little bit more of a buffer between the number one recruit and Caleb Williams, maybe you do that, or maybe that's just a crazy conspiracy theory, Buck.
Yeah, they've got to do something, and their recruiting will pick up, and their defensive recruiting now will pick up now that the Grinch man is gone.
God damn it! Florida State's winning by 14 now, 27-13. It was nice while we thought it could be a possibility, Longhorn fans. Miami was up by 3 points at one point in the late first half, early second half.
Mario
Florida State's taking control.
Very good recruiter. Mario Cristobal, sideline head coach, not so much.
Yeah, it helps when you've got a bag man like the dude who runs whatever it is that he's responsible for. Yeah, they're Phil Knight, who's just been money whipping people for the last 2 years, being shameless about it too. Still need good coaching though.
Yes, and he's not good on the sidelines.
No, they've got a good basketball coach on the sidelines, which is where them spending NIL money has been helpful. But football, a lot left to be desired there. Oregon's actually very happy that they got rid of Cristobal for Dan Lanning at this point.
Oh, Dan Lanning is doing a great job.
Much better.
Yeah, that game tonight with USC will be high scoring on one side, I know for sure. On the Oregon side, they're going to score lots of points against that defense.
So you and I and plenty of other people have been critical of this Texas Longhorns pass defense. Steve Sarkisian was asked about that in one of his pressers earlier this week. This is going to be cut number 9, Brock. So Sark talked about fixing the pass defense.
No, I think a couple things. One, when you fall behind in the game by 3 scores, and you have to throw it, you're willing to take a few more risks. And inevitably, in those games, we got a couple really critical turnovers. Both games, we got 2 sacked fumbles that we recovered. Both games, Michael Taft gets interceptions. Okay. And so I recognize when you get behind, you start throwing the ball and your pass attempts go up. But when you're stopping the run, you can affect the quarterback. You can create turnovers. Okay. People are going to get some numbers in the passing game. Would I like it to be a little tighter? Sure. But we can also do our part offensively and not turn the ball over and not give them short fields, because I think that inevitably had much of an impact in that game as well. And so if we can continue to affect the quarterback, if we can continue to create turnovers, if we can continue to stop the run, and then ultimately not give up explosive plays in the passing game, that would be ideal. Okay. And so, there were some plays the other day that we just didn't play very well. Most notably the sudden change post for the touchdown. The fade ball where we missed 2 tackles and they score there. If we can clean those types of things up, if a team's going to throw the ball 48, 50 times a game, and then you go average per attempt and they're, maybe a 300-yard day, the odds are we're probably playing pretty good as a team. And ultimately our goal is to come out on top and win the game. But to your point, yes, can we be better in pass defense? No question.
Yeah, he plays the numbers games. He talks about how many numbers when they start throwing the ball. You still can't have 4 screw-ups. I don't care what the numbers are. Four screw-ups can get you touchdowns, still will get you beat, no matter what the numbers are. I don't care if it's 50, they threw 60 more times. Well, 4 screw-ups are going to cost you a football game somewhere. So you can play the numbers game and let us think that, well, we stuffed the run, so they're going to throw the ball and take more chances. Well, I got that part, yeah. That doesn't mean you can screw up more. I mean, you got to still defend.
We also got a little bit of nugget of truth there because he's spoken very positively about Malik Murphy, and I fully expect him to do so. He's trying to pump that guy up and show him how much he appreciates what he was able to do these last couple of games. But he's exactly right. The quick turnovers that gives the opposing offense a short field will skew that numbers game in the wrong direction against your defense that is being forced back out there too quickly. Now, it wasn't just Malik Murphy that turned the football over in that stretch where Kansas State scored 20 points in less than 4 minutes. Malik Murphy did have a really bad interception, but Jonathan Brooks fumbled the football. Now, that might have been the result of Jonathan Brooks trying to fight hard for a couple of extra yards because
that dude hit him. I mean,
he got hit hard, Jonathan Brooks was also watching his quarterback completely melt down over the previous quarter plus at that point in time, too. So he was fighting for a couple of extra yards, getting the first down a little bit beyond as well. Yeah. Even still, you got to hold on to the football right there.
This is the team that, knock on wood, here we go before the game. This group has only lost 2 fumbles. Blue and Jonathan Brooks that's truly been it. I mean, you don't see a lot of balls hit the ground with this running back.
No.
For as many carries as they have, they don't fumble it. They take care of it. You don't even see it like where there's a question where the referee's going, he's down. I mean, they hold on to the ball until when the whistle's blown and they hand it back to the official. It hasn't been that close. So they don't give up the ball that easy. That's why I was really surprised last week. Jonathan Brooks was trying to give that little bit of extra, and the second guy came in and clobbered him. That couldn't have helped that neck injury at the time, but that's still our ball. Your job is to protect that ball. You played running back, you know that there's going to be a second and third guy coming.
I don't know how easy it is to recognize this in the moment, but he had already gotten the first down right there. Right. So the extra yard or two that he was fighting for was obsolete, right?
I know what you're saying. You know who understood that more than anybody I've ever coached is Ricky Williams. He understood.
There's a situational awareness thing that Ricky was great at.
He was great at being on the sideline and not taking a hit that he didn't need to hit. You know, like some guys, I'm not going to run out of bounds. Well, he couldn't wait to get himself all the way up to row 1 in the stands a lot of times later in his career. Like, why do I need another hit? I just ran for 25 yards. What's an extra 2 yards going to do? Do I have anything to prove? I always tell him, I said, you got nothing to prove. Just run to me. Look for me. Because there's a guy who's supposed to be in line protecting me on the sidelines. There was a guy in charge of being in front of me for hits.
And Ricky has more credibility with that too, not just because of the overall numbers, but because he would recognize the moments where he did need to show that physicality.
Right. And Jonathan, he'll get to understand that too. And he's a physical runner. His arms are flailing all over the place. I'm really surprised that he doesn't have more balls to get just knocked out because he carries it out there too, because he's swinging, he's throwing stiff arms out there. The ball's up high, but that was you're right, Trey.
I feel like you're jinxing him right now.
No, but you're right, Trey. He had already got the first down. He didn't need 2 extra on that run, that particular run. He got tattooed by a guy coming in through the secondary.
What were your big money plays this weekend? I know this is a complete change of pace here. What were your 5,000 unit plays this week?
Oklahoma was one. Boston College was one.
Boston College?
They lost already. It's over.
Never bet for or against your alma mater, man.
Never do that. Anybody that's playing Syracuse, Pitt will play them tonight. So Pittsburgh. Also, Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State was one of your 5,000 unit plays.
Yes.
Well, now we know why Oklahoma State is losing 45-3 with 4.5 minutes left because Bucky put 5,000 units on them. I'm not going to be surprised if Syracuse won and if Oklahoma doesn't cover to West Virginia tonight.
Just bad.
You had a good last week, though.
I did. I was fine last week.
Oklahoma State and Philly, right?
Yes.
Two
bad plays today. Don't ever bet on your alma mater. You don't do that.
I made the mistake one time in Vegas where I bet Texas over North Carolina, I think is what it was. And North Carolina covered the game. I'm like, never again.
You never bet. You never bet Texas. I've just
no,
just never. You just don't do it because I do that. I do something to them. So when people say, "So, what do you think about the Texas game?" I said, "You might as well flip a coin because I can't tell you."
You're like a Texas cooler.
Yeah, I'm the cooler. Period. Obviously, you can see that as of today.
By the way, I'm going to Vegas next week. I get to cash in that $7,000 ticket. Did you want me to place any bets for you?
A couple of roulette bets. Black 11, 22, and 17. Yes.
11, 22, and 17. What am I betting? $1 each for those?
Oh no. That'll be $10.
$10 each.
Roll. Just walk over to the table. Yes.
11, 22,
17 black.
11, 17, 22 black.
Yes.
All right. If I go 100 each.
I'm not afraid of that.
Oh, really?
No. It's not like I've never done those numbers.
I have to be honest here. I can't because BK was honest with me and actually gave me the ticket, which there was a little bit of doubt there for a second.
Dude, that money is gone already.
I thought that he was going to go straight from Arizona to Las Vegas to cash that ticket in and say, "Oh man, I lost the ticket."
Your wife has already spent that ticket, or some of it.
We may have a new couch coming to our living room.
Now you're talking. There you go.
Gonna have to go to Blue Heron Furniture to get that one.
Absolutely.
By the way, thank you to the great folks at Covert Bee Cave for having us all season long, Fridays before home games, and then for pre-games on Saturdays as well. This is a world-class operation out here in Bee Cave. They have Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Cadillac, Buick, GMC as well. It's a great place to come buy a car. Highly recommend you come out here if you're in the market for a new vehicle.
I'll just tell you, last week when Ricky was out here, he had so much fun being amongst the people. Ricky's a really quiet individual.
Yeah.
He was out here and he showed the Ricky Williams that I saw back when he was 18 years old when I recruited him. He was so engaging with people. He loved it. He understands he said, it's important at this time of my life when I come to the state of Texas that I show appreciation for being back here.
That's cool.
With the people that have paid so much attention to me in my life. And it's kind of taken him a while, once you get away, Ricky, he's got so many different interests, football is one of the last interests that he has even today. But he was so appreciative of people coming out to see him. I said, they're here to see you, dude. They're not, those people love you. I mean, guys were hugging, people were hugging that dude, and he was giving hugs to.
That gets a little weird.
I mean, it was a little weird, but he was hugging those dudes back, and he said, you know what? It felt good, and he wants to do it. He wants to do it again. He's going to join us. We will be doing some shows, probably at the Moody Center for some basketball games. Ricky's never been in the Moody Center.
Oh,
so he wants to come and do a pregame baskball.
Hell yeah,
where people can see him, and he'd love to be there.
Say what's up,
and just say what's up. But he's never been in that theater in the center yet.
I was quietly hopeful that Ricky would unblock me on Twitter, but the more things change, the more they stay the same.
You need to have that way.
Still blocked by Rick the Laureate. People ask, why didn't you ask him about it? I'm like, I'm not going to walk up to the guys we're taking a picture and say, hey, why'd you block me on Twitter? I'm just going to say, shake his hand and say, Rick, good to see you again. And at some point, you're going to set up an interview between me and Ricky.
Yes, I am.
Where we can have an awesome conversation, and I can ask that question at some point.
I still think it's over that Philadelphia Phillies jersey I gave you that you made pants out of or shorts.
It's more like a like boxers to sleep in at night. No, I don't know why he blocked me. I never commented on his stuff. If anything, I only spoke positively about Ricky because he's my all-time favorite college football player. And I went to check something because somebody's like, oh, did you see what Ricky posted to Twitter? I was like, oh, no, I'll go check it. And I found out it was blocked. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. So I don't know what it is. I don't know. I was speaking too positively. He thought I was going to be a stalker. I'm not going to stalk Ricky. I may turn his former Philadelphia Phillies windbreaker into some boxers that I sleep in at night. But that has nothing to do with Ricky the person. That just has to do with an article of clothing that he no longer cared for.
Kind of weird.
Sleeping boxers, okay?
Sleeping
not
boxers.
Underwear. I'm not wearing them out at the day during the daytime. I'm wearing them at night as I sleep.
But he was much appreciative to the folks here, and as you said, the Covert family have been really, really good to us, and we hope to continue this partnership with them. And,
absolutely.
You know, we're hoping over the next couple of weeks, if this team continues to win, that we'll be driving a couple Covert cars back up to Arlington again, making that trek up there for a championship game. And nothing could be better than the Texas Longhorns winning a championship on the way out of the Big 12. I was a part of the one into the Big 12. Man, I still be like a part of it on the way out. I mean, it is great. It's a great feeling.
I've already primed my family to let them know that I may not be in town for Big 12 championship game weekend. Like leaving on that Friday and being gone the Saturday, maybe coming back Saturday because it'll be an 11 a.m. kickoff.
It will be 11 a.m. It's
going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff, so I'll be able to get back by that evening. But yeah, sorry, family. I'm going to be out that Friday and Saturday.
Well, first of all, you got to win this one. It's a week-to-week thing right now, and it's good to have Quinn Ewers back. Trey, I think this is good for the psyche of the football team. I don't mean it to be that now they don't have to play as hard, but guys can stay inside the box now a little bit more. You know what I mean? You start thinking that, you know, for when you got your backup quarterback in, you start having individual players play a little bit outside of what the scheme's supposed to be because they think they have to do a little bit more when you don't have a certain guy in there. But you don't. You can now play the schemes, be yourself. You're talented enough to play in the schemes and still get things done. You know, over the last 2 weeks, you've seen guys like we're talking about in secondary guys, although we've seen some of it all year long, but you start looking at guys and saying, wait a minute, that's not the way you've played the game. Why are you doing that now? Are you playing outside of what you should be playing? Aren't there certain things you've been coached to do? Well, you get that from guys when they think they have to do a little bit more. What they call a little bit more is a lot more to them. So, and hopefully everything gets back to everything gets straight. That's including the play calling.
And the bottom line is Quinn Ewers is one of the leaders on this football team this year. He showed a sort of dedication and commitment going into the bowl game last year, and that carried over into the offseason too.
Yes.
And we've seen a renewed sense of focus in terms of how he's treating himself physically, the diet, the exercise, but there's also a psychological component as well. It's been evident since game one when things weren't always going his way, where last year you would see this pouty guy on the sideline that was very reminiscent of Smoking Jay Cutler from his Chicago Bears days. Quinn Ewers wasn't turning into that when things weren't going well for this offense. He wasn't sitting there bemoaning what he was about to be reading on Twitter. He was keeping a positive attitude, still cheering loudly for his teammates when good things were happening.
Yep.
And he was one of the most excited guys when the offense would finally get it going too. And so I think if nothing else tonight, even if the offense is slow in the early going tonight, this is going to be another one of those games reminiscent from earlier in the season where Texas is so talented on both sides of the ball and all three phases of the game with special teams too. They will eventually wear this TCU team down and win going away.
Yeah, I believe the same thing. I believe it'll just be a matter of too much talent, but taking care of your business. But one thing they'll understand quickly, and for some of the young players and some of the portal guys, TCU will not fear Texas. They don't, because they don't believe in that. They've been in a mindset of years where it doesn't matter what your talent looks like. When you play us, we're going to out-physical you some way, somehow. We'll be in the game in the fourth quarter. They all believe that. I mean, they just had that. Gary Patterson set that in their minds a long, long time ago. Even if his teams weren't as talented, just think about some of those 11 o'clock games that were up there.
I don't know if Sonny Dykes has that in him, though. Like, that was definitely a quality unique to Gary Patterson, right?
Yeah, it was.
I don't know. Look, the TCU is going to be filling out the stands tonight. They're going to be cheering loudly. My prediction earlier in the week is that this game looks a lot like that Baylor game where, people were ready to get loud and watch Baylor stick with Texas.
So
and Texas blew the doors off that game early on. That still may be the most complete performance that they've had all year long. Maybe Alabama was more of a complete performance, but I'd love to see something like that tonight. But if not, just stay focused. Don't let any one moment or any stretch of moments get you down. Understand that you are still the better team. And that as long as you keep doing your job, eventually you will break through and you will wear them down.
Well
too.
said, because you know what you have to do. You have to just win the football game.
Yeah.
Your job is not to worry about point spreads. Your job is to win the football game. So if you have to if Auburn has to come in the fourth quarter and you've driven the ball down there and the clock's about to run out, kick it through the uprights and move on to the next game. Move on to Ames, right? That's what it's supposed to be about from this point on.
Exactly right. All right, we're going to give one more scoreboard update brought to you by Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. 2 locations in Central Texas, downtown, that classic location that you all know about, that you had your parents or grandparents pay for if you were a student at the University of Texas or St. Ed's, or maybe some of you Schmohawks at ACC. And they now have that location, Avery Ranch, really close to where I live in Cedar Park on Palmer Lane in Avery Ranch. Scoreboard update. Florida State, that lead has been cut to 7. The Seminoles do have the ball at the Miami 44. It's 3rd and 7. Miami did cut it to a touchdown lead for the Seminoles, though. 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We'll keep an eye on that one over the last 6 minutes of this show. Washington still leads Utah. That is 35-28 with 2 minutes left in the game. Washington actually has the football, 3rd and 3 from the Utah 6. So even if they don't get it here, they're about to kick a field goal and likely outlast the Utes. Oregon State is still kicking Stanford's butts, 28-10. Games that have gone final now. Yikes, Oklahoma State. They lose to UCF 45-3. Iowa gets over 20 points before it's all said and done. This is a 3-0 game at halftime. Iowa does shut Rutgers out. They win 22-0. Kansas State beat Baylor 59-25. Missouri, they crushed Tennessee 36-7. Arizona kicks a late field goal to beat Colorado 34-31. Tulane beats Tulsa 24-22. Texas Tech upsets number 16 Kansas in Lawrence 16-13. Alabama beats Kentucky 49-21. Michigan beats Penn State. Yes, fighting James Franklin suck again in a big-time matchup. 24-15. And games coming up here shortly. Georgia and Ole Miss get going here in just a few minutes at 6 o'clock. Same goes for West Virginia and Oklahoma. 6:30 starts to go along with Texas-TCU, Michigan State, Ohio State, Florida, LSU. Duke, North Carolina kicks off at 7, and USC, Oregon at 9:30. All right, Buck, just a couple minutes left now. It's time for our score prediction brought to you by Paul's Motor Works. As I scroll down to the read for Paul's Motor Works.
I was just there this week.
Were you?
Brought my little Subaru in to see Paul. Yes.
Now, did you get the oil change there?
I do my oil changes. I've got a little place that I've been doing my oil change, so I'm good. But I had my check engine light came on, and I ran that thing up there so quick, and he told me what was going on, and he says, Buck, this old Subaru of yours, just keep driving it. We'll make it so it turns off, but it's liable to be back on in about another year. I'm like, well, that's what happened the last time. I said, is there anything wrong with the engine? He says, oh, there's a lot wrong with the engine, but that piece of crap of yours, you don't have to worry about.
They have been repairing foreign and domestic cars in Austin for 23 years now. That's right, since 2000. They specialize in BMWs, Mini Coopers, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Volkswagen, and Porsche. They do so much more than that, though. Occasionally, they'll take a look at Bucky's Subaru and tell him just keep driving it. It's eventually going to break down on you. They even changed the oil in BK's beater as well. Don't trust your car to anyone. Trust your car to the great people at Paul's Motor Works. You can check them out online at pmwaustin.com. Score prediction, Buck.
Well, I am going to take the Texas Longhorns 34-17.
34-17, doubling them up.
Yeah, I think they double them up tonight. I think they I'd like to say Sark is going to run the ball a lot, but I'm never right when it comes to that because he doesn't run it enough for me, no matter what he does. When he thinks he runs it enough and people say, well, he ran it enough, I always go, no, there's just probably about 8 or 9 more carries that you could have had to make this game a no contest game. So I don't think he'll do that. I think, like you said, I don't know if he's going to try to prove people wrong, but I think he's going to throw the ball with Quinn Ewers. He's going to show you that he's okay. You know, if Quinn tells him I'm okay, no matter what the arm strength is like, we're going to find out early when he does so. We'll know if the velocity, you as a football person will know if that velocity is there. Is it going to get – because I don't think it gets better as time goes on during the course of a football game. As I said, once you get to halftime, things will change because you got to rev that baby all up again. But we'll know. If he's throwing it really nice early in the football game, Trey, that would be special. That means he's he's damn near close to 90% and ready to go. I mean, and we're excited about it. But I think this is a game where you start to show these teams that your offensive line has done a better job in the run game. They really are starting to do some great things, and your running back runs between the tackles pretty good. And now you have enough running backs. You've got 3 guys I think you can really ride right now, and that's what you do late in the year. I mean, it's the push for a championship. And what better way with your best player? Your running back's been your best player all year. Ride that dude. Ride him. I mean, does he? He's got another year. He's got to come back, right?
He could leave after this year, but I think he does come back next year. I think he comes back for one more year after this one.
Okay, well, ride him into next year. It's time.
I completely agree. Take some advice from your former boss, Nick Saban. I have Texas winning this one 27-17. I think TCU backdoor covers. Texas is now 13-point favorites. That line has gone up by 3 points since Quinn Ewers, the announcement was made by Sark on Thursday. I think Texas does a great job of sustaining drives, wearing the TCU defense out, not asking too much of Quinn Ewers, and basically allowing him to get back into the flow of things for next week's game in Ames. Texas defense continues to look good, pressuring the quarterback, forcing a couple of turnovers.
Maybe 3 turnovers tonight.
They're at the 2-3 turnovers. Yeah, I think that feels like a pretty good number. And ultimately, Texas does win it by 10 points. All right, thanks to everybody for watching on YouTube, for listening on our free app. If you are on YouTube right now, please click that thumbs up button. If you have not already, subscribe to the Texas Sports Unfiltered YouTube channel and do download that free app. Thank you to the folks at Covert. Thank you to Clean Cause, Verde's, Kenfield Golf Cars, Hat Creek Burger Company, Moonshine Bar and Grill, Paul's Motorworks, and yes, Covert Bee Cave once again. Thanks to Brock behind the scenes and to Bucky Godbolt. I am Trey Elling. Stay tuned. Post game is going to be hosted by Isaiah Collier and Rodney Rodriguez. We will talk to you then. In the meantime, hook 'em.